little thing so Gil can get
All right.
started.
It started.
Yep. Good. All right. This is our open session, 6 p.m. on December 14th, 2020. This regular board meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N2520, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. In compliance with the Governor's order, we will be conducting this meeting as a teleconference, and I will read the rest of it when we get back into open session following closed, but I think that's all I have now, so I'll turn it back to you for the last time, President Reagans.
Okay. I'm gonna take off my mask just for a moment here because I do want to open into open session. But I want to do something a little out of the ordinary because I want to open, and I know you're going to adjourn in his memory, but I want to open in honor of Owen Griffith. It also, he was such an important person to the school district that I just wanted to highlight a few things about him and his involvement in our city and in our school district. So the rest of you could be aware of his contributions. He was born in Maryland in 1928, came to Torrance, had 8 kids with his wife Irene. And once he was here and involved in their schools with his kids, he got active in public education at many levels, every level, in every possible way. And I just wanted to enumerate some of those. He was a member of the Board of Education of Torrance Unified School District from 1967 to 1995 and served as president 5 times during those many years. He was reelected 7 times and served a total of 28 years in office. He is definitely the longest termed board member that Torrance has seen. He was honored with the Owen H. Griffith Adult School being named in his honor. But in addition to those things, he served on the TUSD Personnel Commission from 1999 to 2013 as the district representative. He helped found SoCal Regional Occupational Center and served on its board and helped to establish the SoCal Rock Foundation. He served as the Torrance representative to the LA School Trustees Association and the Los Angeles County Trustees Association. He was also represented the school district on the LA County Committee on School District Organization from October 1990 to December of 2017. This was a very busy guy. He served on California school boards from 1968 to 1995. And this is what I wanted especially the new members to know, that he was a member of the board of directors and of the executive committee of CSBA, and that he served in the office of president of CSBA in 1978. And then he was vice president and president-elect, immediate past president, many years on CSBA. So the organization that is our parent organization was strongly influenced by Owen during those late 70s. And he was the chairman of the finance committee and the curriculum committee. I also wanted you to know the honors that he received just because he was such an illustrious guy. I had the pleasure to know him during my term. He had long since left the school board, but was still on personnel commission and the county committee. So he and I had many, many long discussions as we went to meetings for those things. Owen was awarded a Golden Apple by the Faculty Association of the School Boards Association, Outstanding School Board Member by AXA, a recipient of the California PTA Honorary Service Award, Torrance Distinguished Citizen of the Year, and the Torrance Chamber of Commerce Outstanding Man. So this illustrious fellow unfortunately passed away on December 3rd, 2020. Many of us knew him in many different realms actually in Torrance, and he passed away peacefully at home with his loved ones on December 3rd. So thank you, Owen, for all of your service and for having been part of our school district. Okay, so that's something about the past. I want to move on now. And I think that Dr. Stowe has a really important job here now to swear in some brand new board members who will be joining this illustrious board. So Dr. Stowe, take it away.
Yes, thank you, President Reagans and members of the board. It's my honor to do this for the first time for me. And so I'm going to first swear in, do the oath of office for Jasmine. So Jasmine, if you could please stand, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jasmine Park,
I, Jasmine Park,
do solemnly swear that
do solemnly swear that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations and welcome to the Torrance School District Board of Education. Would you like to introduce your family or any guests that are here with us?
Yes. So my parents are here with us, and also some friends. I have some prepared remarks, if that's okay. So hello to my beloved family and friends around the world tuning in to watch me embark upon this new chapter of my life. When I first told you I was running for school board, I remember the surprise and confusion. For some, I'll admit I was more surprised than you were, but always followed by enthusiastic affirmations and unconditional support. Thank you for walking alongside me on this journey, for believing in me when I struggled to believe in myself, for supporting my unconventional campaign strategy when I felt tempted to compromise, for sending encouragement when I most needed them, for giving me a safe space to sort through my many existential crises, for campaigning on my behalf, even those of you not in Torrance watching my candidate forums, sharing Facebook posts and tweets. I know I can confidently take risks that may result in failure and rejection, like running for office, because God has surrounded me with such a loving, caring, supportive community who I have no doubt will stick with me through it all. And most importantly, I would like to give thanks to God, without whom I'm certain I would not be in this position. And I pray that He will use me well these next 4 years. And I'd like to make a few comments in Korean as well for my parents. 저를 도와주신 모든 분들께 감사의 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 특히 엄마 아빠에게 저를 밝고 자신 있고 더 좋은 세상을 꿈꿀 수 있는 아이로 키워주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 그리고 저 많이 바쁠 거니까 설거지 못해도 이해해 주세요. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again. Now I will do the same honor for Dr. Anil Muhammad. So Dr. Muhammad, if you would please repeat after me. I, Anil Muhammad, do solemnly swear
I, Anil Muhammad, do solemnly swear that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely and without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations, Dr. Muhammad. Welcome to the TUSD School Board.
I just wanted to, first of all, thank my family. They're here with me. I'm just going to turn my camera a little bit so they all can say hi. And that's my dad, my wife, and Alicia. So that's all of them. I couldn't have done any of this obviously without their support and just them being on the field as well and just helping me out every step of the way, career-wise, education-wise, and just everything. I also like to thank my family from San Jose. I see my southern uncle there and Karen auntie there, as well as my sister and my nieces in Dallas, and also my uncle from Denver, Aslam, who's also joining and attending. And last but not least, I also, from my own district where I work, the Honorable Bonnie Castrillo, who's always been there and supporting. I also see her, so I really do appreciate her support and thank her for being here as well. Aside from that, I'm just very excited. I can't wait to get started for the students of Torrance Unified, and just very humbled to be here. And I just have a lot to be thankful for, and a lot of great supporters who've placed their trust in me. And I just hope I'm able to deliver the best that I can on that. So once again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And Dr. Stowe, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and, Dr. Muhammad, for being willing to step up and serve the community during a very difficult time. And look forward to working closely with the two of you. And Mr. Lee and Ms. Reagans, thank you so much for the 30 years of service you've given to the Torrance School District. I know there might be a few nice things said about you later tonight when we begin the open session, but it's been truly a pleasure to be able to serve with you.
Thank you, Dr. Stowe. I want to welcome the new board members, and I pass the torch with total confidence to the two of you to continue the work that we, Mr. Lee and I, have been doing, and to join the other three colleagues and go forward. It's going to be a tough year, but I know you guys are up to it. So do all of the good things that we know are out there for you to be doing in the future. All right, so I think that concludes our part of this program. So the folks who need to go into closed session will be leaving us. Is that correct, Dr. Stowe?
Right, so if we could just have Mrs. Liu as Vice President adjourn this meeting into closed session, then we'll go to the link that I sent you all earlier today.
Congratulations again to Ms. Park and Dr. Muhammad. We're all very excited to have you join us on the board. So now, move ahead. We are going to adjourn this open meeting into closed session, and we'll be right back to the open session right afterwards. Thank you.
See you in an hour.
Okay. All righty. I am now calling the meeting to order back to open session from closed session. Tonight, we have some special guests with us. We have California Assemblyman Elmore Stucci here. I think he's here. Is he here? In any case, but definitely I see our Torrance Mayor, Pat Fury. And we'll be clapping right now if we're in a boardroom. And I also see CSBA Pacer, Sarah Bradshaw. So welcome. Next in order is Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Fury, do you mind doing the honor for us and lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Trustee Liu. I would ask everybody to place their right hand over their heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. During the open session prior to the closed session at 6 o'clock, we, Ms. Park and Dr. Muhammad, the newly elected board members, were sworn in. Right now, Dr. Stowe, Superintendent Dr. Stowe, do you have a presentation to make?
I do, and I would like to, at this point in time, again, congratulate Dr. Muhammad and Ms. Park for taking on the leadership role and your election to the school board, and thank you for serving the community, and to Mrs. Reagans and Mr. Lee, thank you so much for your 30 years of service combined to the Torrance Unified School District. I know your service goes beyond that in less official capacities, and will continue. You will continue to serve our community in different ways. I would like to, as Mr. Lee would say, present an object of high perceived value. To Mrs. Reagans, I've got a gavel for her serving as a year as president. Certainly not the most, she's got one there. Well, you've got a replacement in case that one breaks. Certainly a challenging year to be president of a school board, but you've done it with grace and dignity. And so thank you for your leadership, and I will deliver this to you at a time soon so that you can have that. I also have from the LA County office from Janice Hahn certificates both for Mr. Lee and Mrs. Reagan, so I will make sure that you get those as well. So thank you, Mrs. Liu.
Thank you. And next we will have our dignitaries make some comments first. California Assembly Member Morisuchi, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, President Liu, for inviting me to join all of you this evening. This is, first of all, I would like to join the superintendent in congratulating Dr. Muhammad and Ms. Park on your election to the Torrance School Board. I look forward to working with you. We are going to have many challenges as well as many opportunities coming forward in the upcoming years, but look forward to working with all of you. And of course, this is a very bittersweet evening for me personally, as well as for I believe the entire Torrance community, in wishing Don Lee and Terry Reagans the best as they move on to whatever they are moving on to. But to say thank you, a deep and heartfelt thank you to Don Lee and Terry Reagans for all that they have done for the Torrance community through their service on the Torrance School Board, a combined 30 years. I had the privilege of serving on the Torrance School Board from 2005 to 2012. So that was, I joined the school board shortly after Terry Reagans was first elected. And maybe a couple of years, I think, before, maybe 2 years before Don Lee joined the Torrance School Board. And it was, we not only got a lot done together, serving together on the Torrance School Board, passing school bonds, building schools, fixing our schools to make them safer, stronger, and better for our Torrance kids. But it was also a special, we had a lot of fun doing it, I've always said that that Terry Reagans represented the heart of the Torrance School District. Whenever I want to go to central casting to cast, the perfect Torrance school community leader, that was Terry Reagans. Someone that had devoted so much time in her life, not only serving on the Torrance School Board, but serving through the Torrance Council of PTAs, through all her years of service when she raised her sons in the Torrance School District. Terry Reagans was always there, and she was always there to not only lead the Torrance School District with her head, but also with her heart. She was able to especially be the important bridge between the parents of the Torrance school community through her background, having worked for so many years with the Torrance PTAs, but also as a Torrance School Board representative. We're going to miss Terry Reagans very much. Then, of course, Don Lee. Don always brought the business perspective to running the Torrance School District. You always hear Don talking about how he's bringing the experience of someone who signs the front of the paycheck. And then that was critical, not only to have the heart of Terry Reagans, but also the business sense, the business experience of someone like Don Lee, and earning the trust of the Torrance community in managing the finances of the bonds so that we can fix and rebuild our schools. Don Lee and Terry Reagans were at the forefront of these efforts to fix our schools, to lead us through some of the hardest times, in terms of budget cutbacks. I think the Torrance community does not realize what a big loss this is for the Torrance community in losing these two great leaders. I'm always telling Terry and Don that they should both consider running for mayor of Torrance next. But that's for another conversation. So I wanted to join all of you in saying again, thank you. I believe we are presenting a virtual certificate, which I don't know where it's at now, but it's in the mail. It's in the mail. Terry Reagans, Don Lee, thank you very much. Best wishes. Stay in touch.
Yay, right now we can clap. Thank you very much, Assemblymember Marsucci. Now, may I ask our honor roll Mayor Pat Fury say a few words?
Thank you, Chair Lou. I appreciate it. Of course, following our Assembly member always leaves me at a loss because I know we're running out of time. But I first want to offer my congratulations publicly to Dr. Muhammad and Ms. Park. I know y'all are going to do a great job. I'm very proud of both of you. Y'all live in the North Torrance area, so we're trading out Terry Reagans, a North Torrance person, for two North Torrance people. So I'm sure our North Torrance family will be very well represented. Onward to Terry Reagans and Don Lee. We've been friends for many, many years before both of you decided to do what you've done, and you've done such a great job doing it. And I know our new members on the board will actually be guided by a lot of the work that you guys did, because this is a trying time for all agencies, whether it's a state, or whether it's a city, or whether it's a school district. And we're working our way through it, and it's a learning experience for all of us, and we'll learn together and we'll get it right. Nothing is more important than your subject matter, and that's the youth and children of our community, the families of our community, and they're hurting really bad right now because of the COVID-19 situation. And we're hopeful. We see a light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines that'll be distributed in short time. And when I say short time, I'm thinking probably most of them won't be here until at least the second quarter of next year, when we see the more masses are getting the inoculations. But I know, Don, you have lots of plans to do. It's good to see your family on this call. Good to see your boys and Jean, and the same with you, Ms. Parks, to see your family, see your mom and dad, how proud they were. And Terry Reagans, to see your family here as well. Haven't seen them in a while because they're scattered, as many of our kids are now. But now we're moving it on, passing the torch, so to speak. We did have certificates forwarded to you, and as soon as they put it up there, I saw they misspelled Reagans. So I guess we get a failing grade for that one. I swear I didn't print them up. Don Lee, we got you right. Spelled absolutely perfect. And you all get this, Terry Reagans. It's not easy to say. But I'm sure I'll be teased about this for a long time to come. But enjoy your retirement away from this. And if you decide not to run for the mayor's job, which will be open in 2022, there's always the assembly seat. You know, there's let's add some competition. Congratulations to the newbies and congratulations to our retiring members of the board.
Yay. Our CSBA PACER representative, Sarah Bradshaw, would you like to say a few words?
I would, thank you. And I'd like to jump off of the mayor's words. I too am glad to finally see through Zoom the Lees and the Reagan's family and so forth. Oddly enough, I don't see you hanging out at school board meetings. But I'm glad to get this opportunity to say hello. I'm very impressed with your dad and your mom and your husband, your wife, and so forth. These two have given so much to that community. I expect they started on this path back when you were in kindergarten, perhaps, but all these years later, you've all come out for the better of it. And I thank you for giving of your family time to these two community leaders, because I know it's not hard. You might get beat up a couple times extra a year because your dad's that guy on the school board that just laid off the coach or for whatever reason. It's not easy being the school board member's kids. So I thank you for your sacrifice. Want to welcome the new folks and congratulate you. And it's terribly exciting. Stay with these two. They will be tremendous mentors going forward. First time I met Terry, the governor was at Elmer Asucci's office for some event. And I said, Terry, give him this article. It says we're not getting enough money for schools. She didn't ask nothing. She just took that thing and shoved her way right up there and said, Governor, we need more money. It was great. So we can't lose that energy and excitement and so forth. I do want to also, we do have a certificate as well. We've got one virtual for you. There's a hard copy that's being mailed around the state right now to get our president's signature and so forth. So perhaps UPS or FedEx has it right next to the COVID vials. I don't know, but look for a big package coming. And with that, I'm sorry about this COVID thing, but in your honor, I'm going to have to open and drink this bottle of champagne without you, I guess. But again, congratulations. Thank you for your work. And as always, to school board members, you get a bottle of water and a bag of peanuts and maybe a granola bar for your hard work. But thank you for everything you've done.
Yay. Great. So now will be the board comments. I will go ahead and go first, and after which I'll call on each of our board members to speak. And let's all go with Terry first. Mrs. Terry Reagans. What can I say about mom of two successful young men, a supporting wife of a psychiatrist, and a public servant of 17 years for the students and families of Torrance Unified School District? I've personally known Terry Reagans for a very long time. I did not know her well before I was elected to the school board, but rather she was always within our circle of mutual local friends. I feel fortunate that I had the opportunity to work with her on the school board, to see her in action, to learn from her style of communication, and to appreciate her work ethics. It is clear that our school district means a lot for Terry personally. Her sons went through our school system. She's passionate about equity and special education. She also started the board ritual of recognizing the anniversaries of long-term employees at the end of every board meeting. Sometimes it seems as if Terry personally knows all 2,600 employees of the district. But honestly, she really knows the district inside and out. One would always be able to see Terry at our local Torrance events as she makes herself available to our community. From school events to PTA meetings, you can always count on her to be there. And once you're her friend, you know she'll be there for you. I look forward to continuing to receive helpful advice from her on the school board. So Terry, just because you're retiring from the school board doesn't mean that you can get away. Thank you sincerely for all the wonderful things that you have done for our community. Oh, thank you. Mr. Han, would you like to go next?
Thank you, President Liu. And so obviously, I'll make my comments short and sweet, but Betty, you did a great job sharing about who Terry is and all of her accolades. Like she is like Miss Torrance, like she knows everyone in and out. Like if you don't know Terry Reagans, you don't know anyone here in Torrance. And so, but one thing about Terry that I've learned a great deal from. And so one thing about Terry, you see a sweet, dear lady, but at the same time, she is strong as an ox. You know, when she is passionate, she is committed, and she is firm about her beliefs. And that's something that I will always respect about her. She is a person of conviction, and she knows what she believes is best for the city, for the kids of Torrance. And throughout her career, you know, we are indebted to her for her service. One thing about these two, that we are standing in giant footsteps, and to be able to fill those footsteps seems like a very daunting task. And Terry, you have shown what servantship leadership looks like. You have served our students well. And I hope everyone understands that. Really, she really, really loves the students, and not only the students, but the staff. You know, sometimes, to be honest, every meeting we have those anniversaries, and we're like, oh my goodness, you know, and yet, you know, when she says it, she really feels like she knows each one, and she really appreciates each one of them. So thank you, Terry, for all that you have done. And for Dawn, what can I say?
Oh, wait, hold on a second.
You.
We'll do Dawn in a little bit.
Okay,
Let's
yes.
just do Terry first. Thank you. Dr. Gerson, would you like to speak?
Absolutely. Thank you, President Liu. I'm so used to saying President Reagan's. You know, the Terry I know is the feisty Terry. You know, James really hit it when, and so did Sarah, talking about, you know, a person who is not afraid to speak her mind, who is, you know, an advocate for children, how she is, you know, been so involved with TCPTA. And even before I became a board member, even she and I got to butt heads, and I got to see how fiery she is. I think she's a fellow Aries at heart. And, you know, the leadership that she's shown as I've gotten to know her over the last couple of years, you know, how lucky to have someone with so many, decade and a half of experience in being a school board member and an elected official and a wonderful resource. Even though we don't always agree and we get to argue, and yet still walk away so collegial. And I am so appreciative of her. You know, I think about all of the bonds that she and the rest of the board passed, and all of the building. You know, I thought that they were being overzealous. I thought that they were being, you know, too grand in their expectations. And I am so happy to be wrong. You know, what she and the rest of the board produced over the last decade is amazing, and will be used for many generations to come. So thank you, Terry Reagans, for all of your support and all of the service that you've given to Torrance Unified.
That was great. Ms. Park, I know you haven't worked on the board with Terry yet, but would you like to say a few words anyway?
Yes. I was a student under Terry and Dawn's leadership, so I definitely have things to say. So I just want to say, like, I remember when I was teaching in Cambodia, one of my biggest struggles was not being able to immediately see the fruits of my labor. So I would pour my heart and soul into my students, and even though my impatient personality really needed it, I knew that I may never witness the real impact of my service. And I hope that I'm a testament to your service, and that made a difference. As a former student under your leadership, I know I greatly benefited from your heart to serve our students and our community here in Torrance. I also wanted to thank you for guiding me on this journey, following in your footsteps. You were the first person I spoke to when I was considering running, and your genuine heart for our students was an inspiration. And like Mr. Han said, I know I have big shoes to fill for North Torrance, and I don't know if Anil and I combined are enough. Maybe Anil, you are, sorry. Yeah, I just want to let you know that I am going to remember what you continue to impress to me throughout the campaign, that everything we do for our students. And so, thank you.
Yay. And Dr. Mohammed, would you like to say a few words also?
Thank you, President Liu. So I actually got to know Terry just here in North Torrance and just different events, and especially our North Torrance Neighborhood Association. And, you know, that's where I got to converse with her and get to know her a little bit. And she actually pointed me in some directions of PTA, and that, I mean, I did some volunteering work with them, and that's thanks to her and because of her guidance on that note. Just aside from that, you know, I just appreciate all of her guidance and leadership and her mentorship during my time and you know, just even embarking on this journey here. She's very instrumental in kind of helping guide me, and I look forward to continuing to count on her and for her advice and for her guidance and leadership as you know, we embark on this journey together. So thank you so much for your leadership. I know you have a great legacy, and I hope that I can only build upon that. Thank you so much.
Yay, that was great. We've also invited Terry's family here. I see Dr. Reagans is here. Dr. Reagans, would you like to say a few words after you unmute yourself?
Sure. Thank you for asking, Betty. I don't want to repeat just what other people have said, so let me say a few things just from my perspective or my longevity. Many of you think you know Terry for a long time, but I win the set here at 41 years at this point. I think a good deal of what's hard to appreciate is the hard work it takes behind the scenes for the things you see in front of the scenes, of reading every agenda ahead of time, talking to staff about the things that are going on, going to unending conferences and learning things, and one after another meetings to educate yourself about everything around schools overall. And you don't get to know 25,000 people randomly. You have to actually spend a lot of time at every school and every event, between math fairs and science contests and shows and football games and graduations, all kinds of little things behind the scenes. But it's also the attention to detail, the things that people will never notice, like that there aren't nails sticking out of the roof at one of the schools because Terry noticed them and did things to make it stop, or that there's a wall painted on the auditorium at North High's new auditorium that they'd forgotten to do when she noticed. And there's lots and lots of people who are only willing to call Terry to complain about things or bring up things to get information about things because she was accessible and the others weren't. A great deal of the job and the contribution has been behind the scenes as much as the things you see in the front of the scenes. I'll say two other things from perspective. One is, this is of course a strange job because it's an elected job for someone who's pretended not to be a politician all this time, even though she's a quite good politician. Although I do have to say, she began her first campaign was actually 19 years ago, was a very naive campaign and a very losing campaign. But I want to tell one story from that campaign because I think it may be the most important thing of the whole 19 years, was that campaign revolved around the issue of whether we should be tolerant to gay students or whether we should be bullying and pushing them aside. Terry was not particularly a champion of gay rights, but she sure was a champion of not bullying students. And she was shocked to find that the majority of the voters actually were in favor of discriminating against and excluding the gay students, and that's how she lost that election. But the moment that made it worthwhile was a lady came after one of the campaign debates and said, I want to thank you for standing up for the students, even people you don't know, because my brother was a gay student at one of the high schools, and he was picked on by the other students, and he was bullied and he was made fun of, and the staff didn't do very much of the administration. And then on the way home, he was being beaten up and rocks thrown at him, and the school board said, well, maybe you should homeschool him instead, because, you know, children will be children and there's not much we can do. And her brother jumped off the Vincent Thomas Bridge and killed himself. And she said, I think if you would have been there, maybe you could have helped done something to have saved him with your attitude. I think there's a lot of tragedies that may not have happened with a lot of little work behind the scenes that nobody noticed, of helping people through things of all kinds of little things along the way. The other thing I want to offer in perspective is that this has been a mutual relationship between her and the district. This job is a strange job too, in that it pays nothing. I really want to know how Hunter Biden got on a board that pays $400,000 a year. Why can't Terry get on that board next? But this board is part of what I would call the gift economy. Terry gives her gifts and she receives your gratitude. And I think your gratitude has filled her for all these years, has nurtured her, has made her much better than when she started. She is a better politician, a better administrator, a better networker than before. And the last thing I want to say about this is that this feels like a retirement, but I don't think the old model of you begin a job, you work it for 17 years, and then you retire and you're not there, this kind of triangle structure really fits. I'm not sure it fits hardly anyone anymore, but it certainly doesn't fit Terry. Terry is doing a great number of things before the 17 years. That sign on Yukon Elementary that says it's a distinguished school is due to a great deal to her efforts many years ago. And she's always been a worker bee over at TEF and at various PTA things. And I believe that this really will not be much of an end for her service to the school community. I think there will still be a slow leak in our bank account as everybody asks for things for a variety of fundraisers of one thing or another. And we'll be eating dinner at I don't know where, who happens to be doing a fundraiser for I don't know who. I think she will still be invited by friends for a long time to do things. I think she'll still be part of TEF and PTA, probably both at the top and at the bottom as a person doing things like filling backpacks for homeless students that many people aren't even aware exist in our district. And I think many of you will still be able to be ongoing mentored by her, be able to use her resources and her relationships, her great deal of knowledge, whether it's all the way up at the superintendent of the school or down to a local Girl Scout group she was mentoring a week or two ago. So I don't see this as an ending in the same way as a normal retirement would be, but an ongoing of many of the things she's contributed and you've contributed to her. Thank you very much for being so grateful and so loving to her for all these years as part of our school district.
Very nice.
That's great. Terry, would you like to say a few words?
I don't know. After that, it's hard to follow up on that, but I do want to thank the City of Torrance and the school district for the opportunity to, hang on, I have a message here. For the opportunity to serve Torrance for so long. Thanks to the voters for electing me to begin with, and thanks for your faith in all of the years that have passed since then. It really has been a long journey, and we've taken it together. So thank you so much for allowing me the honor and the privilege to do that. I'll try to do this pretty quickly, but I have the top 10 things that I learned being on school board. And I wanted to share that with you all so that you could, especially the new members, but anybody else that's out there that's thinking about jumping into the arena of being on school board or doing anything in terms of a leadership position. So the top 10 things that I learned being on school board. One is that parenting is truly a marvelous adventure. I'm here to start with because of my own kids, and Kyle and Matthew are both here. Thank you for joining tonight, kids. And my husband, Mark, too, who was certainly part of that adventure. I've gotten to meet so many parents through the years and have reveled in those relationships. And I learned through all of that parenting is marvelous, but that a motivated, involved, interested parent can become a quality leader, a school board member, a city councilman, a mayor, an assembly member. All it takes is having that incentive to move forward and go beyond where you are. The second thing I learned is that learning how to be a good, effective school board member is a challenge. It takes time. There's a steep learning curve. The effort that you have to put in to really make it be the best that you can be is something that's really important. And I'm still learning to this day. Just please, anyone who's interested in taking a leadership position, watch, listen, and seek out information from any and all sources. Mentors like Owen Griffith that I talked with at the beginning of the meeting, and Dr. Mannon were important to me in that journey. The third thing I learned is that really believing in what you're doing is essential. And I truly do believe that public education is the most important thing that we do for the youth of our society. If we didn't have public education as an equalizer and try to bring everyone up to speed in that way, I think we would be an entirely different community and society. So I truly have that belief, and that guides what I do on an everyday basis. The fourth thing I learned is that collaborating with whatever team it is that you're working with is absolutely critical. We have a governance team here at TUSD, and all of those folks are really important folks to get to play nicely with. We tell our kids to play nice with the kids at school. It's the same with us, that we need to learn to practice that and to get along well and interact and be collegial, as Dr. Gerson said. The fifth thing I learned is that recognizing the quality of folks surrounding school board is so important, especially in TUSD, where we have terrific, dedicated people at all levels, including administration here at the district office, staff at the district office, teachers, principals, school staff, anyone and everyone that is here in our school district are here with the same mission in mind as we as school board members, hopefully the same mission, that we are all here to do the best that we can for the students in our schools. So please, as a new school board member or someone interested in taking a leadership position, really get to know them and interact with them and be a part of their community so that they can take you in and include you. The sixth thing I learned is that making public decisions is really hard. Not everyone will ever agree with a decision that you make. That will never, ever happen. Not everyone will disagree with the decision you make. That will never, ever happen. There will always be a broad range of responses and attitudes and judgments about what you do. That's just part of the animal. So what you have to do, and it's been mentioned a few times, is stick to your own principles and do what is right, using the best judgment that you have to be able to apply to that. Number 7, I've learned that being a part of school communities is the best possible world, that being part of something as large as TUSD on the school board, or as small as Yukon Elementary, where my kids went to elementary school. It's down to like 300 students. That's a very small school, but it's still a really priceless school community. So it's been a true honor and privilege to be invited to those environments and to be able to join in events and really be a part of things happening there. Thank you to all of you school folks who have made that happen for me. Number 8, we're almost to the end here. That we have in Torrance terrific organizations everywhere in Torrance that greatly enrich our Torrance Unified School District. It truly takes a village or the city of Torrance to make all of the things that we do for our schools students happen, including Torrance Council of PTAs, numerous other business and civic and community organizations, all of whom enrich our school environments and bring wonderful aspects to of the community into the schools, and then allow the school to share in the community. That's one of the things that I think is being lost this year in particular because of the COVID virus, is that we're less able to interact with our community. But that too, this too shall pass, and we will get back to that. Number 9, the thing I've learned is that being passionate about what you're engaged in and what you're doing is the best. Passion drives me every day, as a few people have said. It provides endless motivation for what I need to do and gives me ultimate satisfaction in what we were able to accomplish. And then number 10, last but not least, I've learned that one person can make a difference to lots of other people. Do what you believe in with passion and do the right thing. And there you have it. And thanks again for allowing us this moment to speak and for allowing me the privilege to serve in Torrance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. It's not every day that we get to see the retirement of someone who's volunteered for decades. Anyway, going on to the next person is Don Lee. And I want to first say that, Don Lee, you're a true Torrance man. Born and raised here, graduated from Torrance High School, set up your successful business here, raised your 3 wonderful sons here who you always talk about, and you even married a Torrance girl. It was no surprise to me that you have also devoted most of your adult life to serving the people of Torrance. Since your mid-20s, you have served in so many public roles in our beloved city, such as a Parks and Recreations Commissioner, a Planning Commissioner, a City Council member, the President of Torrance Area Chamber of Commerce, and here as a Torrance Unified School Board trustee. How perfect are you as a model Torrance citizen? I've known you for close to 2 decades. You are one of the most humble and unpretentious people I know. And you're also one of the smartest people I've come to know too. You're not that old, but yet you have the immense wisdom in handling difficult situations, many of which with humor. We're really gonna miss those laughters. Your interpersonal skills allow you to work well with all kinds of people, even people you may not like. I've learned a lot from just observing you here on the school board. It has truly been a joy to work with you. Perhaps tonight concludes your many decades of public service in a governing role, but I appreciate your offer of helping other board members and myself if we reach out to you. So you're still in the business of public service, now just in a private citizen role. Thank you for being you, and I look forward to seeing you around town. Next, Mr. Han, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I'll make this brief, short. And so obviously, Don, the reason why I'm here as a board member is because of you. And so now you're leaving me. So now I'm getting a little bit angry here. But again, Betty did a great job of summing everything up. But I think for me is you were the perfect complement to Terry. You know, it's like black and white, yin and yang. You guys are like the perfect team, you know, in every way. And that's what I learned about the both of you. You've taught me so much. Like, I think Betty's absolutely right. You are one of the most humble people and the smartest people that I know. When it comes to politics, when it comes to governing, man, you know so much. And I think I've learned so much. And I wish I had more opportunities to learn even that much more. But the thing that I take away from all of this is that I always remember what you told me about what my role is as a board member, what my priorities are. And I think that what I've learned from you is you've shown me what that looks like. You always told me to put my family first. You've always put your family first. You put everything else first because those are the things that are important to you. But I think because you put those things first, it made you such a great board member. And I think that's what I learned. I feel like so often we may feel like we need to put this first and put everything second so that we can be better. But I've learned from you that if we have our priorities straight, it's those things that give us the energy, the strength, and the ability to do what we are called to do as elected board members in that way. I'm going to miss your motions to approve all consent items at the very end at every board meeting so that we can get out of here. I'll miss your Taco Tuesday comments during our board meetings as well. But most of all, I will miss your wisdom, your demeanor, your business acumen, it's just been absolutely wonderful. And I think for everyone on this call, Don is like the unofficial historian of Torrance. If you want to know anything about Torrance, he knows everything about Torrance. But again, I think to the both of you, both Don and Terry, that I want everyone in the city to know how indebted we are as a district to the both of you, just for your years of leadership. You guys have gone through craziness. You've gone through the bond, you've gone through the Great Recession, you've gone through the coronavirus pandemic. I hope and pray that I don't have to go through any of those things anymore like you guys did. But thank you for giving us the foundation so that we can look good, because you guys are the one who paved that path for us. Oh, one more thing. Gene, he's your problem now. He's off our hands. I feel bad for you though. You got to dump all that trouble now.
That was very funny. Dr. Gerson, would you just like to say a few words?
Absolutely, thank you. Oh, Mr. Hahn said that Mr. Lee is the reason he got into it, but that was because Mr. Lee asked. I got in also because of Mr. Lee, but for the opposite reason. When I asked what I could do next for Torrance, it was the Furies who said, oh, you should run for office. But it was my anger at Don, and it got me to run. So I loved hearing Don's perspective. He told a story at the CSBA conference, which was in front of a room. It was actually a double room full of school board members and superintendents. And he talked about this quote unquote pissant teacher that he wanted to throw out of his office, and was glad he didn't, because now he sits next to him on the dais and then pointed at me and had me wave. So another thing about Don is, of course, because he spent so much time on city council before becoming a school board member, you know, we've all heard the many Donisms, which we'll all miss. But it was, he said that he was a better school board member because of his experience on city council, that experience helped him become a better board member. And he's also been critical of other elected officials who did not mentor the next group of electeds. And Don has full-heartedly jumped into that mentor role. He's taken all of us under his wing at some point, offered all of us advice, and you know, grateful for all of the time he's spent helping to develop each of us with our strengths and becoming the better board members in what we're going to continue to do. As the three of us enter our third year, we are better board members because we've had Don at our side. And yes, and like Mrs. Liu said, I too will occasionally take advantage of Mr. Lee and call up for some additional mentoring and advice. You know, I also think about the bonds, which I started to bring up with Mrs. Reagan's and the role that she played, but I also know that Don played a huge role in that. You know, an amazing aquatic center that you know, the two of you built, that was so good that the women's national water polo team played China in our pool, and the program loved it so much that the U.S. men's team made it their official home, and while their new facility is under construction. Now all of our high schools have performing arts centers. We no longer have to juggle schedules with the city, as you know, Mr. Lee and Mrs. Reagan's have created an independence for our district. And because they had the vision to put gymnasiums at all of the middle schools, now I can have a vision of multiple seasons of, you know, multiple sports across 3 seasons where, you know, students can now play against other middle schools. And I can have that vision because of what you set before us. So, and we will continue that as we push forward with the girls softball field at Torrance High, finishing off that vision. So that I want to thank you, Don, for your mentorship and for all the work that you've done, so that, you know, you've done a lot of building, which has given us the opportunity to have new visions for the students of Torrance. So thank you again for all of your years of service, and I look forward to your continued friendship. Thank you.
Yes, that was great. Ms. Park, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, yes. Oh man, I'm feeling I wish that I had gotten to know both of you better, but I know that you are only a phone call away, so thank you very much. I just wanted to echo everyone else's sentiments. Thank you so much, Dawn, for your years of service. I believe my lifetime, you were elected to City Council in '92, and that's the year I was born, so plus more, I'm sure. And as and as a graduate of TUSD, on behalf of all of our students, I just wanted to thank you for your service and your leadership and ensuring that our district provides the best quality education possible for our students and making sure that we're fiscally sound, super duper important. The reason I ran for office is because that's what our TUSD education instilled in me, that life isn't simply about seeking personal success or comfort, but that our education is intended to identify and grow our gifts and passions to serve others. And you are the true embodiment of that philosophy. So I want to thank you for that. And I aspire to one day embody the humility and wisdom and humor that others here have mentioned that you have brought to this board. Again, you got legends, so who knows where I'm going to end up. I'll probably fall short, but it's always good to have a high goalpost to aim for. And yeah, I just wanted to again thank you for your fiscal stewardship for a district through all of the crises that we have gone through. And I hope to hear more colorful stories about Torrance politics from you at some point. Do you have any interest in starting a podcast maybe? No. Thank you.
That's great. Dr. Mohammed?
Yeah, thank you so much, President Liu. Dawn, I share actually a lot of the sentiments that were already shared. But the one thing that really resonated with me about you is just your straightforwardness and the honesty and just the everything that you've shared, the guidance that you've given. I still remember our chats. And so, thank you so much for just being who you are and just kind of, just speaking your mind. And I think that's something that I really value about you. And I think that's what a lot of people value about you. And so thank you for that. And also thank you for your leadership and service to Torrance. I really do appreciate that. And going forward, I hope that I can continue to count on your guidance, leadership, and friendship. Thank you so much once again.
Yay. Mr. Lee, can you shed some of your wisdom?
Well, it's a great way to leave this board when a new board member informs you that they were born the day you were elected to the city council and that she referred to you as a legend, which is clearly just calling you old, but that's okay. On that note, thank you. I want to thank my sons, Devin, Andy, and Zach for watching this out with Gene. They were here at the beginning, and I can see that they're better at sitting still than they were back in 2007. I've been thinking about what I was going to say and how to wrap up the 13 years I've spent on this board. So I'll kind of read from a script, not something I was known for very often, but probably best in this case. The first person I want to thank is someone who was not in my life when I started this journey as a board member in December of 2007. But once she entered it, I became a better board member and even a better person overall. And that was my wife, Jean. In fact, the only reason I got a first date with her is because I was a board member. She wasn't really that very easy. And when I ran for school board, the only thing I was interested in was passing school bonds, but she showed me the rest of the job was just as important. And she helped me understand special education for real. And she'll understand the reference. So, she was a real partner in this journey, and I can never say how much I appreciate her and how much I love her. She is my life. The next person I want to talk about is Dr. George Mannon. I met him before I was on the board and just after he got hired. So We ran a failed bond campaign way back in 2006 before I was on the board. And then we learned and figured it out a little bit with a lot of help from the board, the staff, and the community. We learned how to sell the bonds to the community in 2008 and 2014. The bond program is something I'm very proud of, and it would have never happened without Dr. Mannon's leadership and direction. When have you heard of a major government building project like this that came in on time and on budget? And it was because of him and the team he assembled to get it done. Being at a board like this is a collaborative process. And as I like to say, the only way you get anything done is to get two other people to agree with you. So you have to give a little and remain flexible to get anything done. I've been lucky to have served with 9 outstanding board members over the last 13 years. The first board had Mike Ernst, Al Marisucci, Mark Steffen, and Terry Reagans. In 2009, we lost Mike Ernst and picked up Michael Wormers. And then in early 2012, we appointed Martha Deutsch to replace Al Marisucci, who was elected to the state assembly, and he's still there. And for the next 7 years, that was the board, Reagan, Steffen, Wormers, and Deutsch, that I remember the most. We fought the wars, balanced the impossible budgets, passed a second bond, rebuilt the budget after the recession, changed the calendar, and probably worked as well together as any group of type A politicians I've ever served with. So I thank all of you. In 2018, we got 3 new young and excited board members in Betty Lou, James Hahn, and Jeremy Gerson, and the community is lucky to have them. We all expect great things from all of you guys going forward. I was able to work with a couple of mayors, Frank Scotto and Pat Fury, who also supported TUSD and what we were doing to help the community, and they really wanted to maintain great schools. Sometimes it took a little convincing, but they always came through, so thank you. I will not miss 52 slide PowerPoint presentations. I will not miss Zoom meetings, and I will not miss having to ever run for office again. What I will miss is the people and the relationships. This is what sticks with you after everything else is over, and it's really how stuff gets done. I ran for office for the most part because I thought it'd be fun, and I approached it trying to find some humor in all of it. And that really isn't very hard. But contrary to some rumors, I did take everything pretty seriously. In my last 13 years, it's been rather eventful for me personally as well. All my kids graduated from Torrance Unified School District, some with little room to spare, others with a little easier, but they all got through. And so while I say this job isn't a lot of fun most of the time, and it isn't, the joy of high school graduations pretty much makes up for everything else. I've just talked about all the stuff I've been a part of, but I'll tell you the truth, us politicians have brilliant ideas, but then we hand them off to our staff to execute, and that's when we get to take all the credit. Let me talk about this for a minute. I've been an elected official for 21 years on the city council and school board. Been president of the Chamber of Commerce and president of some other community organizations. And the one thing there's never been a shortage of is brilliant ideas from the leadership of these groups. What there is a shortage of is execution. And of all the things I'm most proud of over my time on this board is that we executed. And I probably should say not we. As I said before, the board has brilliant ideas, but it's up to the cabinet and staff to execute on them. And they did an outstanding job of doing that, whether it was a $550 million in bond projects, tearing apart budgets and putting them back together, changing calendars, working with the city, dealing with our unions, and what's going on right now with COVID-19. TUSD consistently gets it done efficiently, on time, on budget, and really that's what I'm most proud of. The one person that was a constant through the 13 years was Terry Reagans. And I want to thank her personally for putting up with me. We're the opposite politically and socially. We did have some spirited debates on a lot of issues. And at the end of the day, the only thing we focused on was what was best for the kids and TUSD and not our disagreements. While I was taught that this was the way you govern most effectively, unfortunately, this is not a lesson that a lot of folks in politics are following right now. I will put on my yes boomer hat, especially for Jasmine, for a moment to talk about this a little more. The only measure you have as an elected official is what you get done. And to get stuff done, you need to form coalitions with folks that may not have the same worldview that you have. Most of the time, you do not govern an echo chamber. So the process works with compromise and understanding where the other guy's coming from, and just yelling and screaming about something and just making a lot of noise really doesn't get anything accomplished, and it wastes everyone's time and nothing gets done other than creating animosity and division. I hope Terry and I modeled working well together, and if we did, it was probably more Terry than me. Now I want to look forward. A lot's been made of the fact that the school board in 2018 had 53 years combined experience, and as of tonight, it has 6 years. I personally think it's exciting because the 2018 board consisted of folks in their late 50s and early 60s, and now Torrance has a much younger board with no one in their 50s, and the majority in their 40s and one in their 20s, and a way better representation of the school community. They have removed us boomers for the better, and I expect great things in the future from this board with new ideas and perspectives that us old folks don't have. One last thing about new ideas. Don't be afraid to be bold. Do what you think is right. Even if the folks are standing in front of you with torches and pitchforks saying it isn't, stick to your plan. Also, do not be afraid to fail. Sometimes failing leads to a better result. The failed 2006 bond led to a much better 2008 bond. Be brave. You also have the leader TUSD needs right now. Dr. Stowe has done a masterful job over the last year leading this organization through a series of challenges that no one foresaw or planned for. He has come up with collaborative solutions to multiple COVID issues and remained flexible enough to adjust to the ever-changing environment. This board is lucky to have him right now. I think I've covered everything I wanted to say. Sorry if I went too long. I know I violated the Jim Armstrong rule of there are no bad short speeches, but oh well. I never get to make the motion to end the meeting again either. So lastly, just remember one thing in the immortal words of Warren Zevon, enjoy every sandwich, or maybe a taco. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Don. I apologize in the excitement of the celebration of wonderful public service. I had missed your family. Your family's here with you on here, and I'd like to ask them to say a few words, please.
Thank you, President Lou.
This is very dangerous.
Here it comes, Don.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, we all are here for you because, you know, you're Don. Zach unfortunately had to leave. He had to go take a final. And Nicole, unfortunately, had already made plans. So she wasn't able to be here today. But we're all here, and you're drinking, of course. So here it is. Don, we are very proud of you for all the accomplishments you've had for the city of Torrance. But for me as an educator, I am most proud of the work you've done on the school board. Woo. Though you went into being an elected school board member with the ideas of fixing physical structures that house the students and teachers, your heart was most touched when you saw the excitement of the students and the school staffs to their improved facilities. It was a win-win for you. Don, what many people do not know is how extremely intelligent you are. You outwardly show a goofy side, but what many do not know is that you read 3 newspapers every morning: the Daily Breeze, the LA Times, and the Wall Street Journal. And the newspaper ink is permanently stacked on the kitchen table, so come and it can be verified. But it's that intelligence that you brought to the school board, and the school district was the benefactor of this intelligence. Now, we all know your public service is not over. Your love of the city and your ADD will not allow it. So it is on to new adventures, and we are here to help and to watch and remain ever proud. But I do want to remind you, in this house, West is best is still the rule.
And in the words of a great Western philosopher, the dude abides.
Oh. Anything?
Good job, Dad.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. 2 great Torrance public legends here, retiring. We'll miss you all. So at this point, feel free to log off or leave the room if you want. Feel free to stay also, but we are moving on to item number 8, which is board recess. Actually, is everyone okay? Can we skip the recess? Yes? All right, thumbs up. Moving on, we are on to agenda item 9.1, the annual organizational meeting of the board election of officers. Vice President Han, are you here?
Yes, I'm right here. So I would like to make a motion and ask for a second to nominate Betty Liu for president of the board.
I second that motion.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second that motion.
Wonderful. Thank you. All in favor? Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, say
Aye.
aye and raise your hand at the same time. And any opposed? No, the motion passes. Thank you very much.
I would like to make a motion for James Hahn to be vice president.
A second. So motion made and second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion to have James Hahn as vice president passes unanimously. I shall make a motion, and I would like to ask for a second to nominate Dr. Gerson for the clerk of the board.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Park. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. I will also make a motion and ask for a second for the board to appoint interim superintendent Dr. Tim Stowe to serve as a secretary to the board for the same time period.
I
Is there a second?
will second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. We have our officers for this new year. And I just want to say that I'm very humbled to be this next president of the school board. I want to start this upcoming term, year's term, under a theme of resilience and empathy. We're starting the year in the middle of a worldwide pandemic that forced us to close down our school campuses several months ago. None of us had any idea that the school districts would be handling a severe case such as this. However, our students, parents, certificated employees, classified employees, along with all other stakeholders in the community, so many people in the community, have all been resilient to this world crisis that will define and shape the Generation Z students that we are educating. Our district and its over 2,600 employees stand strong and have adapted to many unforeseen circumstances and issues in this very fluid environment. Our students have had, without notice, immediately transitioned from in-person schooling in a physical classroom to a learning environment online. It has not been an easy transition, and we're still adjusting to the ever-changing orders from the county and the state. But our teachers, our students, and our district have all worked together to remain resilient in these difficult times, to continue our district's stellar level of excellence in education. In terms of the other half of this year's theme, we must all do our best to practice empathy. Embedded within the definition of empathy is an open mind, understanding, and respect. We are a relatively new board with the most diverse elected body here ever in the history of Torrance. Our board members come from different professions and experiences where we can each contribute our unique points of view. We come to a consensus and produce a singular voice for our board after considering our very important community input. We must listen and value one another despite our possible differences in opinions. It is especially important that we all exemplify these important principles because we are an educational institute for the most impressionable and youngest group of people in our society. We hold ourselves to a higher standard for our students and our children to emulate. Thus, I believe that this year's theme of resilience and empathy reflects our whole district, especially students, families, teachers, in this unprecedented year in education. Thank you all, and I look forward to working with everyone. And now we move on to item 10, which is adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. The agenda is adopted. Report item 11, report of the closed session actions. The Board of Education in closed session voted unanimously to approve the following administrative appointment effective January 4th, 2021. For Lucila Dottie to be assigned assistant principal of Richardson Middle School. Lucy has served as an acting assistant principal at Calle Mayor Middle School since August 2020. She previously held the position of teacher at Birtland Middle School since September 2003, during which time she served in additional roles as teacher leader for Common Core Math, Science, GATE, and Response to Intervention, RTI. Lead writer for state and national recognition and English language learner coordinator too. From 1995 to 2003, she was a classroom instructor and bilingual coordinator with LAUSD. Lucy received her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the University of California at Berkeley in 1995, her teaching credentials from California State University, Dominguez Hills in 1999, and her Master's of Arts in Educational Administration, also from Cal State University of Dominguez Hills in 2018. We would like to congratulate Ms. Lucy Doty. Yay, we can clap for her. Woo! So is Ms. Doty here right now? I see you.
Yes.
Would you like to say a few words?
I'll keep it brief. It's quite an honor. I am a product of Torrance Unified. I've been a proud teacher for many years, so I really just am looking forward to this next chapter and being a part of the Richardson family. So thank you for the honor. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Doty. Congratulations again from all of us. We're moving on to item 12, staff presentation and information. Secondary School Director, Dr. Egan, would you like to make a presentation?
Actually, I think I'm introducing the student representative, correct?
Great, yes, you are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Liu, members of the board, good evening. And I just want to take this time to introduce North High's ASB president, Sophia Rodriguez, who's our student rep. And Sophia, you want to take some opportunity here to go ahead and talk about what's happening at North.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So at North, we've had a couple events so far. During the summer, we had a virtual freshman orientation where our student council and HRA club worked to introduce the 8th graders to North and prepare them for that transition. We walked them through registration and had a check-in with them in September to see how they've adjusted to high school. We also had a Welcome Back Spirit Week where each day students uploaded pictures corresponding to that day. For example, Throwback Thursday, students posted their baby pictures on Instagram tagging our North High accounts. We had a virtual club rush through Zoom. We had a teacher mass singer where a few teachers sang in a disguise and students were able to vote and guess who the teachers were. We had a Halloween costume contest and we just finished a completely virtual homecoming, including nominations, voting, reveals, and games. We have a few more things coming up, but that's all as of now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for the wonderful report from your school. Now we're moving on to item number 13, public hearing. This is a duly noticed public hearing on the Torrance Unified School District statutory school facilities fee, including alternative school facilities fee report for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020, in compliance with Government Code Section 66006 and Section 66001. Have any written comments been received from any person as to the reportable fees report since December 4th, 2019?
No, there have not been.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone present who wished to comment on the reportable fees report or the reportable fees resolution presented for adoption in tonight's agenda? If so, please state your name prior to making your comments. I see none, so no discussion. We now close the public hearing, and that the board will be considering the resolution accepting this report in discussion item 15.6 later on in this meeting. Moving on to item number 14, oral communications. And I'm supposed to read this blurb here. So here goes. The Board of Education welcomes input from the public. Public comments to non-agenda items may address only items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Time allotted for such comments is limited to 3 minutes per comment. Total time allotted for public input on non-agenda items is limited to 30 minutes. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another. Complaints against employees or students would normally be heard in closed session, and the district's complaint procedure should be followed before discussion with the board. The board may disconnect disruptive individuals from the teleconference if necessary. Any person who willfully disturbs any public school meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. Education Code Section 32210. Do we have any oral communications, Superintendent?
Yes, President Liu, we have one unscheduled hearing, and that is Deb Tabush, TTA President.
Good evening, President Betty Liu, school board members, Dr. Stowe, cabinet, and our new student representative. Deborah Tabush, President of Torrance Teachers Association, 1619 Cravens Avenue. I would like to start by welcoming the new school board members to their newly elected positions. The TTA officers, board of directors, executive director, and myself look forward to working with you and all the school board members on behalf of the TTA members within our local. I wish Mrs. Reagans and Mr. Lee all the best in their new endeavors. As TUSD continues to navigate the reopening of schools, I hope that the lines of communication will be transparent and information be accurately shared with all employees, parents, and the community. As president of the Torrance Teachers Association, I will continue to emphasize the same message of health and safety that TTA leadership has expressed since the onset of COVID-19 in March of 2020. TTA is not opposed to having students at school, but we need everyone at any and all work sites to feel safe. Watching the news, as we all know, the pandemic numbers continue to grow and the spread of cases across the county have not been stabilized. Everyone on campus and throughout our community needs to be diligent in preventing cases and the potential spread to our school campuses. To everyone listening to tonight's meeting, I urge you to continue to wear a mask, adhere to the 6 feet of social distancing, wash and sanitize your hands often. Any and all breaches of these protocols can have a catastrophic effect and should not be tolerated. Most importantly, stay home if you are sick or have any type of COVID symptoms. Contact your doctor and get tested. If you are planning to travel this holiday season, please consider the health and safety of others and self-quarantine before coming to campus with TUSD employees and students. Lastly, continue to stay informed of the number of cases within our school sites by reviewing the new COVID-19 dashboard and information tab on TUSD's website. We are all in this together. Please do your part.
Thank you, Ms. Tabush. Moving on to item number 15, discussion action items. 15.1, instructions to the public. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda topics must complete the appropriate submission form on the district website, www.tusd.org/BOE/board meetings, under quick links, prior to 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. Speakers are permitted 3 minutes per topic, and the total time granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes per topic. The board policies require that public comments to the board comply with certain procedures, including items 3 to 5 formally stated in communications. Item 15.2, appointment of board representatives to district, community, and professional committees. Does anyone want to nominate or volunteer for any of the committee positions? We can go with Mr. Han first, Vice President Han. Okay. I don't hear.
I'm sorry. The first one I would like to be like to ask to volunteer for SoCal Rock. Obviously, with SoCal Rock, there has been a transition this year due to the retirement of 3 of our SoCal board members. Our board member from El Segundo, from Manhattan Beach, and at our large board candidate are retiring this year. As a result, I've been asked to consider coming on as either vice president or president of the board. We're going to be making that decision this week. And as a result, they asked if I could ask you to be allowed to serve on SoCal Rock's committee again this year.
Yes, you got it. Thank you. Is there any other committees you're interested in?
The other one is a district city committee, working with the district.
Great. Okay, next, Dr. Gerson, do you want to volunteer for any committees?
Yes, President Liu. I'd like to volunteer for the Blue Ribbon Panel on Communications.
Great. Anything else?
I would like to continue on the District Legislative Action Committee.
Sounds good. Moving on. Let's see. Aren't you also on the City of Torrance Strategic Planning Committee? That, as our representative, that was appointed, I think, a year or 2 ago.
So the City of Torrance asked Torrance Unified to send a member to sit on the 10-year Strategic Plan Committee. And yes, you sent me forward, which I appreciate. The committee has been meeting about twice a month for the last 1.5 years. This evening I met with them. We're on a section for public safety. So yes,
great.
I am serving in that capacity for you.
Great, that would be your 3rd committee.
President Liu, I don't believe that's actually a board appointment on this list though, because it's with the city.
Also, it's considered a city appointment kind of thing. We don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they just wanted a representative. I don't remember there being a that coming up before. So I'll double check on that, but I don't.
If I can, yeah, if I can continue on Dr. Stowe's point. So yes, the 20 members of the committee, which came from recommendation from business and homeowners associations, were all appointed at a city council meeting. And it's supposed to be a short-term committee, even though 1.5 years isn't very short-term, but hopefully it will end sometime in the next few months. Linda is looking as her last thing before she retires from the city, and wants to finish this before she goes. So hopefully this will just go on for a few more months, and then it'll be presented before the city, and it'll no longer be on my agenda. But Dr. Stowe is correct. It is a city committee.
Okay, thank you very much for serving on that committee. Moving on to Ms. Park. Are there any committees that you want to volunteer for?
Yes, I'd like to. I'm interested in the Budget Advisory Committee. the joint committee of the City Council and School Board, and the Blue Ribbon panel on communication.
Great, thank you. Dr. Mohammed?
Thank you, President Liu. I would be honored to serve on the Los Angeles County Schools Trustees Association, as well as the Budget Advisory and District Budget, if that's possible. Thank you.
That'd be great. So I'll be appointing the following. Mr. Han, Southern California Regional Occupational Center, the Joint Committee with the City Council, and District Budget Committee. For Dr. Gerson, it will be Blue Ribbon Panel on Communication, District Legislative Action Committee, and LA County School Trustees Association. For Ms. Park, it will be Budget Advisory Committee, Blue Ribbon Panel on Communications, and Joint Committee on City Council and School Board. Dr. Mohammed, Budget Advisory Committee, District Budget Committee, and Los Angeles County School Trustees Association. May I have a motion to accept all of those?
I'll move that we accept those appointments.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of the list? Say
Aye.
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 Great, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 15.3, approve the positive certification of the first interim report for 2020 to 2021. Do we have a staff presentation?
Sure. I will defer to Dr. Butler, our Chief Business Officer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stowe, and members of the board, cabinet, and the community as a whole. I'd like to begin the presentation for first interim talking a little bit about the budget context for the nation, the overall economy that we deal with, and how that has an impact upon what we now see here as the first interim budget. So first of all, one statistic that really struck me, I was listening to a seminar about a week and a half ago that was geared towards chief business officers, people doing the same work I do. And one thing that the speaker pointed out kind of shocked me a little bit. I hadn't heard it this way before, that in 2018, so before we are where we are now with the COVID economy, in 2018, 40% of US households could not afford a $400 emergency. They did not have the money or the resources to come up with that. And the reason why that struck me so strongly is the nature of the economy and the nature of the recovery that we've been looking at, given the shock that we first had when COVID-19 became strong in our society. And I've heard a term used that I had not heard before this one to describe the recovery. I mean, we've heard about V-shaped recoveries and Nike swoosh, if you will, that go up in different ways. This one's called the K-shaped recovery. And if you think about it that way, you have the base of the K, but then you have the two arms coming out. The arm that's doing well and going up right now is the Wall Street arm. You've seen the stock market doing well. It seems that our tax receipts are looking good for California, which is largely based on personal income tax and the higher tax earner, or the higher taxpayers that we have. So it seems that that leg of the economy is doing well in terms of recovery. But then you have the downward slope, which is the Main Street slope. That's the slope that's being affected, and all the individuals in our economy that are in lower wage service industries that are not doing well through this recovery that we're looking at right now for COVID, and in fact have been buoyed by large stimulus checks from the US government. So if we were having 40% of our households that weren't able to make their bills or cover a $400 emergency before this, think what a large number of households are having that kind of a problem now. Now, this may get taken care of with additional federal stimulus money that continues on after the end of this year. Certainly a possibility. But as we stand right now, again, the Wall Street side doing well, the Main Street side not so well. And what that does for our economy as a whole is keep us in an unstable environment. We're just starting to see a few predictions coming out, such as from UCLA, that's saying that there will be a stronger, ideally, recovery as we move into the later parts of next year and beyond, and that'd be great. But projections at the moment, nothing that we can count on, but we're hoping that it does get better for the long run, again, if there's federal stimulus money. But the one thing we need to look at right now is we have done better in the state economy during the current year than we expected to. So you might have heard some kinds of statements, news reports have come out about a windfall, a $26 billion windfall for the state. And just to put that in perspective, it's not a windfall that all of a sudden more money was found on top of good money. All it is that we have not the dip that we thought we were going to. And that 26 billion, if you were to put it into the different parts of the state budget as the state's legislative analyst office has done, you would see that a little over 12 billion of that would be attributable to K-12 education. We certainly wouldn't have a problem with that. But that the LAO, Legislative Analyst Office, recommends, and a lot of legislators are starting to think this way, is the best way to take that one-time unexpected money that comes back in and pay off the deferrals that we're facing right now. So there's a little bit over 12 billion available for K-12 education if they use the same way of dividing it up as they have previously. And again, 11 billion in K-12 education has been put into deferrals, which kept us away from cuts this year, but only by giving an IOU, by us moving expected receipts into next year and us borrowing to make it to that point. So what I'm saying to you is one-time windfall, our best indication at this moment is that will be used to clean up the deferrals and a little bit more beyond that, but not too much. So we're not expecting a lot there. Again, with no federal relief, I think that the economy will have a hard time going forward. Hopefully federal relief is on the horizon. But regardless of those two pieces right now, again, the Legislative Analyst Office, which is certainly a respected source of information, financial information for how the government works here, their major concern is not the current year or the next year. They think that we'll make those through fine, but it's 2022, 23, which they then see costs continuing to escalate significantly for the state of California without sufficient revenues to match that. So they're giving us a warning 2 years out. As we'll talk about in our report, as we get into a little bit of the detail there, 2 years out is our significant event as well that we're looking at and saying, let's make sure we're as prepared as possible as we can be for that. So as again, that seminar that I went to about a week and a half ago, put on by School Services of California as one of the major presenters there, what they were suggesting is, number one, the current advice that we have in terms of planning going forward is just don't count on COLA, keep going steady for the next 3 years. That's the best advice from School Services right now. But if you were going to plan for a best case scenario, look at a mild COLA, maybe 1.14%. Worst case scenario would be cuts on top of just staying flat. Maybe we drop down a little bit. But at best case, you're looking at a COLA of about 1.14%, a cost of living adjustment. And just for the district showing up, we have an extra 2.7% in additional costs every year, just in terms of paying our employees more for the steps that they're on the salary schedule, or the columns that they're on as they get more education and progress in their career, and STRS and PERS increase costs, the retirement plans that both our teachers and our classified staff pay into. So nothing else, not even giving additional money to any of our bargaining units, we're already facing a loss next year, most likely compared to where we are right now, if there is only a mild COLA. So again, we're in a decent situation today. We've got some respite perhaps from our deferrals, but we always have to keep our eye 2, 3, and even beyond that years out into the future when we think about things financially. So that's kind of the context for what we'll talk about here. This is the presentation that we have. And if I could have the next slide, please. So the assumptions that the first interim presentation are based upon, and I should take just a small step back and say first interim is one of the 4 reporting periods that we make to the state every year. We have an adopted budget for this year that happened back in June. And now what we're doing is we're looking at what's the state of our budget through the cutoff of October 31st. That's what's called first interim. So it's saying now that you've started school back up, you've brought people back, how are you looking so far? That's what this report's about. So the current assumptions that have been built into the first interim budget as you see it, the statutory COLA is currently projected higher, although as you can see the note at the bottom, LAO's latest fiscal outlook reduced it to 1.14%. But you can see the statutory COLAs, if they're funded. For example, this year there is a statutory COLA of 2.31%, but it's not funded. That's why they're saying we're at flat funding this year. But what School Services has recommended is go at 0% for this year and the next 2, which we've done. But this is the real key. The budget as enacted for the state of California in this current year held us harmless if we had a drop in enrollment. We have had a drop in enrollment given COVID, and as a district, we've been losing approximately 200 students or so every year. But we're keeping the same enrollment ADA projection we had the year before for 1920 in this year and for next year, because that's the way the state budget has written in how we can use ADA. They're holding us harmless into next year. Our issue comes when we hit that third year, 22-23, and you can see that we're dropping about 600 students, and that on its own has about a $5.2 million hit to our budget that hits that year and is ongoing. So that has been baked into the projections you're seeing today, because that has been our trend line, as backed up by the demographer that we use as well to look at our ADA. So our concern is declining enrollment and needing to match expenses downward to match the revenues as they fall as well. Next slide, please. Additional assumptions that we built in, you can see the CalSTRS rates, and then they go up again in 22-23. We're currently in the midst of a 2-year buy down slightly of the percentage from the state in terms of both CalSTRS and CalPERS. So you can see them both. Where they are, CalSTRS stays relatively equal, it goes up by 2%. CalPERS goes up by 2.3 next year, and then by additional 3.3 the year after that. So again, costs, increasing costs that we have to take into account, those have been built into this budget. What has not been built into what you see here are any salary negotiated increases that might occur, whether that's the salary benefits, but any increased costs due to our negotiations with our collective bargaining units. Nothing's been built into this because we don't have agreements that would spell out what those are. When those do get baked in, you'll see obviously if there's an increase, they'll have a negative impact on our reserves and on our operating balance. Next slide, please. So right now in the unrestricted general fund, and as you remember, we have two sides of our general fund. The larger is the unrestricted. That's money that comes in from the state, largely in LCFF, some from the federal government, and we can use it for any educational purpose that we need to for taking care of our students and helping them learn and grow. We also have the restricted side of the budget, which has to do with money that comes in for a specific purpose and needs to be spent on that specific purpose. And that's why we don't focus on that in what we're doing here. There's not a lot of discretion in the restricted side. Once the money comes in, you need to use it for the purposes for which it was given to the district. But on the unrestricted side, you can see our revenues. And again, we're looking at a decline of revenue in 22-23 based on declining enrollment. 21-22, we're losing a little bit of some of the CARES money and other learning loss mitigation that we've had, just a little bit of that. That's going down. But the biggest loss, as you can see, is 22-23 because of a drop in enrollment recognized in that year. Expenditures, however, as planned at the moment, are not going down. And that's because there's no specific cut built into the budget other than a placeholder that we do have in the 22-23 year. We know, and I'll get to that on a further slide, that if we don't do significant cuts, we're scheduled to not meet our minimum reserve that we need to have, the 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. So you can see what's happening between the revenues and the expenditures, and then how that leads into our deficit. Not too bad of a deficit this year. Not saying any deficit's necessarily good, but at least this one's a little close to break even. Next year, however, with slightly declining revenues, but increasing expenses, the deficit grows to almost 10 million. And then when we lose a lot of additional revenues, expenditures keep going up a little bit. That's when we have a $20 million projected deficit at the moment in 22-23. Next slide, please. And so what that does to our ending fund balance, as you can see, is whittle away at it. Next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for the ending fund balance, please. So there are portions of the ending fund balance that the board has said is to be set aside for particular functions. Now, you can also change these at any time, but these are the three biggest pots that have been set aside. The first is committed for student achievement, credentialing, textbooks, etc. In the past, when there was some additional one-time money, the board at that time recognized that there are significant one-time expenses that have to do with our student achievement. The single biggest one above that is textbooks. When it's time to adopt textbooks, it's a large cost, one time, that ideally keeps you going for a few years. But we saw that there were one-time pieces that were in our future. We set aside one-time money to cover those. That's sitting there. In addition, we have about 4.8 million this year that is sitting under the LCFF. This is money that we have taken in over the last couple of years for our supplemental grant money, which is to be targeted for our English language learners, low socioeconomic, foster youth, homeless youth. And we have done a good job finding the right ways to spend that and making sure that it has an impact, but we haven't quite spent everything. So this district has chosen to keep that as a separate pot that as we continue to find the needs and uses, that we will take care of student achievement. But you can also see that declining over the 3 years, because unless we find additional sources of revenue or potential expenditure reductions, we need to eat into that a little bit. I apologize. This is going down because it is targeted for expenses. I'm now remembering Dr. Crumpy in the back of my head telling me that. This one is going down because of projected expenses within LCFF. Thank you. Then committed for declining enrollment. We had a one-time gain last year that we knew we had declining enrollment. This is a one-time potential shot in the arm to help with that. But as you have seen, if in 1 year we're going to lose $5.5 million, 22-23, based on declining enrollment, this is not exactly a drop in the bucket, but certainly doesn't cover the whole problem if that comes to realize itself in the next couple of years. Thank you. So where that leaves us then with our unrestricted ending fund balance is, again, as baked into, sorry, not as baked in, but as you can see here, if we don't do any additional changes, we end up being under our reserve by about $7 million in the third year. And that's just based upon spending down our overall reserves because of not having a balanced budget during these 3 years. Next slide, please. So actually, I'm sorry, I need to say one more thing on the last one, and then I'll turn this over, or I'm sorry, Dr. McDowell, were we going to do your part as a separate item after this? Or did you want to talk about it in here?
No, we were going to continue.
Okay, perfect. So just finishing the last point here, what you will then see if you look at the in-depth financial reports that we submit to the state that are attached to this board item, the SACS reports is what they're called, you will see a $6.8 million holding spot in the third year saying that we need to cut money in order to balance our budget and have enough reserves, the minimum 3% that we have to have for economic uncertainty, to maintain our positive budget outlook, to not be either qualified or negative, which invites in layers of oversight from the state and the County Office of Education. So again, baked into the budget is our cuts in the third year, $6.8 million in order to balance our budget. And with that, we are very fortunate to have Dr. McDowell to tell us a little bit, please, about the specific piece of the LCAP that talks about our budget, that is explaining it for parents.
Thank you, Dr. Butler. This is the second year that the CDE has required us to produce what they are calling a budget overview for parents. It essentially takes the numbers from the first interim report and puts them into a easily understandable graphical format so parents can understand in very few pages what the budget is all about. It normally, and when I say normally, it means last year for the first time, it accompanied our June approval of the LCAP. That would have been in June of 2019. Because there was no LCAP process this year, it was replaced by the Learning Continuity Plan, which this board approved in September. They decided to connect the budget overview for parents to the first interim report. That's why it's combined in this item for approval and posting. It should revert this coming June to being connected back to the LCAP. But given that, we included the 3 graphs that are in the budget overview for parents. And I do have to apologize, there's overlapping font on these, and this is not our doing. This is a CDE template, and this is how it produces when we do it. But this particular slide is important because the pie graph on the left represents the district's total revenues. And then the smaller graph on the right represents the LCFF portion of the district revenues. And in particular, it separates out the supplemental grant, which Dr. Butler mentioned, targets our low-income English learner and foster youth students. And you can see that our supplemental grant for the year is $14,306,000, and that number will come up in a little bit. So this is just the overall reflection of revenue sources for the district. So next slide, please, Gil. I mentioned that there was no LCAP this year, that instead we produced a learning continuity plan. And normally the LCAP has hundreds of millions of dollars in it, as you just saw on the previous slide. But the learning continuity plan really was designed to reflect the monies that we are spending on COVID-related supports, instruction, and intervention, everything we're doing to, in addition to what is normal, to keep things going. And the total budget in the learning continuity plan was just over $16 million. And of that $16 million, $12.5 million of it was geared towards what they call increased or improved services for those high need students that we mentioned. You will note that $12,500,000 is less than the $14,306,000 that was on the previous page. And that is because this learning continuity plan is a mix of coronavirus relief monies as well as some supplemental monies. And I'll give you a very quick example to explain why. A lot of the staffing that we have done to support student learning during COVID is likely to exist for the entire year. However, a majority of the coronavirus monies end December 30th. They have to be expended. So if we are going to continue services beyond this month, it has to be paid out of other monies, and that is where the supplemental grant comes in. So even though there's only $12,500,000 in the learning continuity plan, some of that money is supplemental money. And then things that are not in the learning continuity plan are all the things that are normally in the LCAP. So we are going to spend this year over $20 million on our high need students when only 14 million was in the supplemental grant. When you combine the supplemental grant with relief funds, that most vulnerable, highest need population is going to get about $20 million of support. Last slide, Gil. This slide reflects back to last year. Our grant last year, almost $15 million, and the $14,300,000 we have this year kind of reflects that slow downward enrollment loss that we are facing. So we have a little bit less this year than we had last year. But what this graph represents is the closing of schools on March 16th of last year. We had plans to expend the full $14 million, but with the school closures, many things that were going to occur simply ceased. And so we did not spend all of our money last year. In addition, coronavirus relief monies were eligible to be used, even though we received the money this year, they could pay for expenses beginning with March 16th of 2020. And so a lot of things that happened then to support the student learning were paid out of coronavirus, thus creating additional unspent monies in the supplemental grant. So long story short, and this is where Dr. Butler mentioned the additional monies that we are able to roll over into this year to support our high need students. Those monies are being added to what we are planning on spending this year for even increased supports. I'll give you one quick example. Learning loss is going to occur for quite some time, and we're going to have to provide additional learning opportunities for students, possibly as soon as this summer, extended school year, extended school day type things, and that additional money is going to help pay for this. So those are the three key slides designed to give parents an easy to understand or easier to understand budget picture than the tables in the much longer first interim report. I believe I'm kicking it back to you, Dr. Butler.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. So the next steps involved are for the board to consider to approve the first interim positive certification. And what a positive certification means is that we can meet our bills for the current year +2. If we were unsure if we could do that, it would be a qualified certification, which again brings the county office into a lot more of the work that we do to oversee and make sure that we're on a path to get back to fiscal stability. And then a negative certification means that a district does not see how it can pay its bills for the current or next 2 years. And then that definitely invites in the county for oversight of potential loan to bail out the school district and a lot more negative consequences beyond that. So best to maintain positive if at all possible. And what we are telling you is that with those cuts, 6.8 million by the third year, if nothing else were to change, we believe that we can be positively certified and meet our obligation for this year plus the next 2 years. You're also being asked to consider to approve the budget overview for parents. And beyond this point, we continue to negotiate with our bargaining units. We have another session scheduled with Torrance Teachers Association for Wednesday, and try to see where we get to with that. Then we will have the governor's budget proposal in January. And that will give us an indication based upon economic forces and results to that point in time, where the governor is suggesting that the state go with its budget in the next year. Doesn't matter finally until the budget's actually passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, which happens typically by the end of June, but at least it gives us an indication of spending priorities and where the state budget might be going. And then we're back to you with the next step in the 4 of the annual reporting that we do of the budget, which is the second interim report, which will happen in March, and it includes data through January 31st. How are we doing at that point, being a little over halfway through the year, and how does it look like we'll end up? So those are the considerations for the moment, and we'll certainly entertain any questions.
Dr. Butler, if I can ask a question. So obviously, as you're going through negotiations, I have some questions regarding the budget. And so my question is so we see that -5 million in 2022, right? So my question is, at what point is it a dangerous number? So let's say, can we get to -8 million? Is that, so 5 million, 8 million, is that a huge difference? 5 million, 9 million, is that a huge difference? 5 million, $7 million, that's a huge difference. I want to know what that deficit number becomes problematic. 5 million problematic already? You know, that's my question. You just gave us a number, but I don't know how much risk reward there is. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm trying to determine if we make decisions now, what's the reward and what's the risk? And I need to know a little bit more about the risk. And so we are a -5 million. I get that 3% reserve. But is that already bad enough? Is that bad, or is it okay bad? You know, we know it's bad, but what wiggle room do we have with that, in your opinion?
Well, any budget that you receive, the old adage in our phrase is every budget that you see is exactly wrong and approximately right. What that means is we don't know exactly how things will turn out. We're giving you projections based upon what we know at the moment. Any of those projections that change, whether it's to the positive or the negative, will obviously impact that final end result that we see. And I don't do anything with tarot cards or prognostication. Not my skill set. It may be for others out there. But the point I'm making, somewhat facetiously, but I do mean it, is all I can do is present the information that we have based upon school services, legislative analyst's office, what the governor says, what the legislature says. You'll get good information, and you'll see where that information, those assumptions at this moment, where they end up 3 years out based upon what we're required to report to the state. But other than that, I can't tell you if it's good or bad. All I can say is I know that if you continue to spend more than you have, that's bad. Be that bad in my budget, it'd be bad in my personal budget, it'd be bad for a district budget. But what I am saying to you is the real concern for me, just being straightforward, and the real concern for the legislative analyst's office is that third year. We share the same concern for the economy as a whole. Where will it be then? Will this K-shaped recovery change itself and actually help lift all boats? Don't know.
No,
The other-
but I think you're not answering my question. I fully understand what you're saying regarding all that. But my question is that third year number, right? So it's that -5 million, right? Whatever, right? With all the projections, with all the numbers that we have now, we're at the -5 million. You know, my question is let's say we make decisions and like, obviously we may change our projections a little bit and that number becomes -8 million. You know, is that bad? Is that somewhat bad? Or I don't know how bad -5 million is. You know, I don't know. You know, that's my question to you is how bad is -5 million 3 years from now based upon these projections?
There is no specific quantifier to give you an answer to that question.
Okay.
What I will say is, if you want to talk just in terms of percentages, is 1 million worse off? We're actually -7 in the third year. Is 1 million worse off better than, I mean, that much worse than, you know, having the 7 million already? Well, it's not as large a statistical piece. But the thing that the board hopefully keeps in mind is, if we're already looking at cuts in the third year potentially, if nothing changes between now and then anything extra that would be given in negotiations would be additional cuts on top of that, or additional solutions that come from the economy, perhaps. But every dollar is one that has to be recognized. So I can't quantify it for you other than to say 1 million on top of 7 is a little bit more. That's the best I can give you.
Mr. Hahn, I will say that, you know, just so you can kind of put it in perspective, the cost of 1% is about $2 million. Right, so you know that our district budget, it's basically between 86 and 88% salary and benefits, and so the additional funds go to the rest of the operation, right? And so, but with the cost of 1% of our budget, roughly $2 million, you know, you can just do the math and see, okay, we would need to cut X number of positions, or, you know, that helps you understand maybe just a little bit in terms of the overall picture. But again, I would agree with Dr. Butler, having been in that office for 4 years and also lived through the recession when we had to cut over 400 positions here in Torrance. That any number in the red in that third year is something that we need to at least, you know, we need to acknowledge and be aware of and make decisions with that in mind. And knowing that we have the governor's budget proposal coming up in the first week of January, hopefully that will shed a little bit more light on where we are and maybe where the legislature and Sacramento sees us going in the spring term.
I appreciate that. I guess the reason why I'm asking is because of the fact that if we decide to somehow be able to change that number, you know, the red number, obviously, if we can affect that number, but the risk is that we may have to go further in red. We may have to go further in red if we make those decisions. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so my question is that basically, let's say if I'm going to risk going to -8, you know, but I may have the chance of getting down to -2. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to figure out, you know, like the risk reward. Like if I'm going to go from -5 to -8, but I can maybe get to -1 if we decided to spend that money earlier, is it worth it? Do you see what I'm saying? The risk reward kind of trade-off. That's what I'm trying to wonder, you know.
I do understand the concept, but I think there are two parts to it. There's a part that you can control as a board, and there's a part you can't control. What you can control is in terms of cuts. And if you wanted to say, we want to give X amount more in negotiations, knowing that we'll have to cut something else for it, and you look at that, that's a trade-off, not necessarily a statistical probability. That's within your control. The other piece of it, though, is you are asking for us to give our best prognostication about, is the economy going to get better, or is it going to get worse, or is it going to stay with the numbers that we know? And that's the part I can't help you out with. That's the part that I present the information, and it just depends what happens. We just don't know. We didn't know what was going to happen. You know, think back a year ago. Who would have expected any of this where we are today? So unfortunately, I can't help you with that part, but I do see your part in terms of what the board can control in terms of expenses. Yes, Dr. Mohammed?
Just a quick question. I do understand that there's obviously a lot of variables and things that, we can't control and things that like in January, we'll have some more updates and some more forecasts coming down the pipeline. I'm just curious, I'm assuming that we're at least having some brainstorming conversations about strategies for that third year internally to see what we can do. My guess is that at least some kind of a thought processes are going on. Obviously, they're going to change as we move forward, but I'm assuming that we're at least working on some of those strategies.
Actually, the main thing that we're going to be using to plot that strategy going forward is the new budget advisory committee that we're starting in January. So Dr. Stowe and I talked even in advance of my hiring. This was one of the things that I talked about in the hiring process. I believe that the best way that you find the efficiencies that you need to within a district and revenue enhancements, bring both pieces to the picture, is through a broad group of individuals with ties to the community, ties to the district, know who we are and where we're going and what's important to us, to come up with those ideas together. So that's where we'll be starting, is with a significant and robust budget advisory committee at the beginning of the year.
Following up on what Mr. Hahn said, I am having a little bit of difficulty understanding the scale of 5.2 or 6.8 million in terms of our district. And but I think that would be useful information for the public as well. So if you could give a hypothetical example or a real example of what that would cover in any single year, just to wrap our minds around the scale of what that would mean in 2022-23.
Sure. In terms of scale, probably the easiest way to do it is just a round number, is when you think about our average teacher salary, including benefits, including the pensions that we pay and all that, it's a little under 100,000, but let's just round it. So if we're looking at needing a $7 million rounded again budget solution 3 years out, that's 70 teachers. That's a lot.
Does anyone have any more questions for Dr. Butler or Dr. McDowell? If people feel ready to make a motion, I will.
So moved. I make a motion to accept the first interim positive certification of the first interim budget report.
I second that motion.
Great. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion's passed for the positive certification of first interim report for 2020 and 2021. Item number 15.4, approval of the 2020 to 2021 budget overview for parents. Do we have a presentation?
The presentation was included in Dr. McDowell's slides there, President Liu.
Yes, he did. Is there do we need a separate motion to
Separate motion, yes.
Okay.
I wish LACO would have done a better job with their template, but as we're stuck using that, I will make the motion that we accept the parents' guide.
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. I see none opposed. So the motion passes for the approval of 2020 to 21 budget overview for parents. Now moving on to item number 15.5, reopening update. Is there a presentation?
Yes, Mr. Morrow will put the slides up, and because this is just discussion only, we're seeking some board direction to have conversation. There's no need for a motion on this item. So I love this picture. This is at Hickory on Monday, last Monday. Our kindergartners coming to school, and so it was quite a special day. And but before we begin talking a little bit about the reopening, I just want to start tonight's presentation with a big thank you. This is a time like none other in my career, and I speak probably for most of us, that education has been front and center in the conversations across this country since March. And it continues to be an extremely challenging time. But I believe that here in Torrance, we have accomplished something very special. And so I would like to share a little bit with you and thank the board for your steady guidance through these difficult times, as well as the community for supporting us and supporting our students. But especially, I want to thank the team TUSD and all of whom have worked so hard to make the last 9 months successful by almost every measure. And when I talk to others about what they're doing in other districts and able to interact with folks throughout Southern California, I can say that we are doing it better than anyone, truly. Whether students are learning at home or in person, now that we've brought back some of our students, staff across the district are doing everything that they can to make sure that our students are supported academically, physically, emotionally, and I am so utterly proud to work alongside these true professionals each and every day. Last week, I was able to witness this outstanding teamwork firsthand in a visit to one of our schools that I'd like to tell you about. It really was inspiring for me to see this team in action. And I believe that the public needs to know how much work it goes into ensuring that students are learning in general online, but specifically how we are bringing students back to campus safely. And the DPH praised us and praised our processes and our site folks for all of the work. So I'd like to recognize our maintenance operations and custodial staff for doing everything that they are doing to ensure that our buildings are clean and safe. Our bus drivers who are getting some of our most vulnerable students to school every day and ready to learn. Nutrition services staff, as you well know, have been serving meals since March. And actually last week, kind of exciting, we surpassed 1 million meals served to students in our community since March 17th when we began serving. Our district office staff, the resource teachers, administrators, everyone doing what we can to support sites, to support those that are working directly with our students. Those of you that have visited schools, you know that our site clerical staff, our principals, our assistant principals, focusing on student learning, communicating with parents, doing everything that they can to support teachers and staff in the classroom. And our teachers, our counselors, our paraeducators, speech language pathologists, I'm going to leave someone off, so I apologize, but our numerous student support teams that are just doing an amazing job helping our students develop academically, virtually or in person, providing necessary social and emotional support where needed. And of course, our district nurses and our site health office staff who are really on top of every issue. And again, the Department of Public Health has praised our work in this area and that these folks are ensuring safety of our students. So I did want to just take a minute here and thank the amazing people that we have that are dedicated to the work in our district. So to our 3,000 plus TUSD employees, thank you. So as we move on to the slides, we've got some pictures of our TK and K return. And again, we assigned a district administrator or director, anyone we could find out to the sites to support that on that first day and make sure it goes well or went well. And it was a very exciting day for not just, a second first day of school, if you will, for those parents and the students and our teachers in the classroom and other staff. And so here's a picture of a couple of our rooms. And next slide, please, Gil. So we had 83% of our blended students return in transitional kindergarten, and then 87% in kindergarten. And so we welcomed over 800 students back to the classroom last Monday. We are still planning for the Monday after winter break to welcome back our first graders again, over 800 students. We had 91% of students in the first grade want to come back. And so January 4th, we will welcome them back. So the next section of the presentation, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Crumpy, who's going to talk a little bit about TK2 waivers, because this is kind of where we want some guidance from the board on our second graders and when we bring them back and how that might look. So Dr. Crumpy.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Stowe. Gil, next slide. So as you know, all 17 elementary school waivers were approved by both Los Angeles and California Department of Public Health back on December 3rd. And we've got almost 900 students that are eagerly awaiting a return to school in 70 different blended classrooms. We still are needing to comply with the Department of Public Health orders that restrict our cohort sizes to 12, which is a little constricting for us. We're going to talk about that. So next slide, Gil. So our option, we're going to present three different possible options tonight. Our option is to reopen second grade as soon as possible after the Department of Health increases that cohort size from 12 to 14. They have stated that this would happen sometime in January. Actually, just a few weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving, they had actually already indicated that they were, it would occur right after the new year, and we could plan for 14. For the 14 student cohort size actually aligns with the state orders. Back when the state put those orders in place, Los Angeles County had higher case numbers and chose to restrict those cohort sizes to a greater degree than the California orders. So we would, our first option is to return as soon as those the orders return to 14 students and 2 adults in a classroom. If we were the current cohort size, if we were to do this with the 12 students, would require changes to educational options. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. But we do feel that we can turn this around in about a 7 to 13 day turnaround as soon as we get a notice that we can move the cohort size to 14. Go next slide. The second option is that we don't wait for the Department of Public Health, and we go ahead and we reopen second grade in late January with the cohort size of 12. Challenges and disruption for students here, that 63% of our students would be over the maximum number of students that could return to class. So at least 75 of them would not be able to return to school. We would need to hire additional teachers. We're anticipating possibly 4 additional teachers temporarily if we implement this just in the meantime until we're able to change the cohort number. And also student class changes would occur prior to parent conferences, which is also very disruptive, not only for our families, but for our teachers. Gil, next. Some dates to consider. This is all happening in January, is the end of our first grading period for our elementary school. This is the first achievement report, is then available January 22nd, right in the middle of this, and January 25th through February 3rd are when our teachers hold parent conferences with our families, with our parents. So a third possible option is that assuming that the Department of Public Health, again, does not change that cohort size yet to 14, that we could choose to return a little later on Tuesday, February 9th, which all those disruptive details that I talk about in option 2 would still occur, except that it would happen after parent conferences would be completed for our parents and our teachers prior to the return date. And Dr. Kim has got the next couple of slides.
Thank you, Dr. Crumpy. So what are our next steps? Well, right now, the maximum number allowed by DPH in our small learning cohorts was and still is currently only 12 students. So there's not enough space for all of our returning blended TK, K, and first grade students to come back to campus learning. We allowed parents of those students to temporarily change to distance learning, and that reduced our classes down to 12. So we need to set a deadline for when those families can change back to blended learning and return to in-class instruction. This deadline will need to coincide with the DPH when they allow 14 or more students in the class. Otherwise, there won't be enough space for those students to return from distance to blended learning. The LA County Department of Public Health, they announced that all school districts in LA County will expand the scope for their already received TK through 2nd grade waivers to include automatically TK through 5th grade with that same waiver. Therefore, our elementary schools have already begun thinking about the return of all of our students through 5th grade to return. Mr. Marr, the next slide, please. There's actually more information on this topic with another waiver option. So when DPH announced that all school districts in the county that they intended to expand their TK through 2nd grade waiver to all elementary grades, they actually meant and included 6th grade. Many school districts in the county include 6th grade as part of their elementary schools. So for those elementary schools that go through 6th grade, their already approved TK through 2nd grade waiver will expand and include grade 6 automatically for them. For districts like Torrance Unified with elementary schools that are K-5 only, they'll be given the opportunity to apply for that additional 6th grade waiver. We don't really have any other details at this time, except that this is all supposed to happen sometime in January. Our assumption is that the application process for the 6th grade waiver will be very similar to the TK through 2nd grade waiver that all 17 of our elementary schools already went through, applied for, and received. So using that prior knowledge, our 8 middle schools are ready to apply for the 6th grade waiver when it becomes available and begin the process for the return of our blended 6th graders to in-class instruction. Next slide, please. All right. And I'll turn the presentation back over to Dr. Stowe.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. So as you can see here on this slide, we sent out an email late last week, I guess it was, about the dashboard that we have made active for parents to be able to see cases on the campus. And then also further down, there's historically the number of cases of COVID-19 that have been separate out both students and staff on our campuses. And so so this is just a additional piece of information for families and staff to be able to know what's happening, and we think it's going to be a good communication tool. So that really concludes our presentation. We're happy to take some questions. I know there's one speaker, President Liu. I don't know if you want to allow that speaker now or at the conclusion of board comments.
Yes, let's allow the speaker to come speak now.
Okay, so Gil, if you could let Stacy Atkinson in the room to be able to speak. Thank you.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening. I'm the parent of a 2nd grade student at Fern Elementary. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
I want to thank the teachers, principal, district administrators, and all school support staff for making the virtual school year go as well as it has. They've done an excellent job and have worked so hard for our students. Like many parents, I have concerns as to the timing of the possible return to campus for the 2nd graders. I am aware the waiver was approved, and I know there's been immense pressure to obtain one. We all want our children to be physically in class. We all agree this is what is best in an ideal situation. Right now, we are seeing what is going to be the worst spike probably of the pandemic, as cases have increased 600% in the past month. From my experience working in 2 local area hospitals, the past 2 weeks have been more than alarming. The next few months, I'm afraid, will continue to be very difficult. I have been very happy with my son's blended learning class and teacher. I am less confident with a possible return to school date in the near future for him due to widespread community transmission. I realize the district and school have done all they can to make the environment as safe as possible, and I'm very thankful for that. It just seems like it's questionable timing. I ask that we strongly consider the status of community and local transmission levels in moving forward. The argument that certain students have been back on campus for a while and all has been well is simply not applicable to this moment, as transmission was not then what it is now. I would have felt more comfortable even a month ago with my child going back. I realize I would have other options should I not feel comfortable with a return to school. However, keeping continuity with the same teacher in class is important. I would be more than happy to have my child return to campus when we are seeing a downtrend of virus, as we have in the past in our county. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. We are now open for discussion among the board. Dr. Gerson, you want to go ahead? And then afterwards, Mr. Han.
Thank you, Madam President Liu. So Dr. Stowe, first, thank you, Mrs. Atkinson. Of course, she raises some important points. When we were originally arranging all of this, the city of Torrance was in between 3 to 5 cases per 100,000 based on a 7-day average. And as of my calculations last night, we're about 30 per 100,000. So things are considerably different now than they were then. So Dr. Stowe, I want to bring back the question that I had at the last board meeting. I want to thank you for your honesty and candidness about it. And now I'd like to ask, what was the results? Well, first, did you go back to staff and discuss, and what were the results of not waiting a certain number of days after winter break to bring back students and bring them back on January 4th?
So we kind of looked at a calendar, right? And so we have had a lot of conversation about it. And if you look at 11 days after Thanksgiving, that's when we brought back the TK and K students. If we think maybe over the holidays, the largest, if people are going to gather, it's likely on the 25th or the 24th, and the 4th is 10 days following the 25th. And so, does that mean they're not going to get together at any time, at other times, or travel? I mean, that's kind of still where we are. I do know that a couple other South Bay districts are continuing on with their plans as well to return students on the 4th. And so that's, we kind of looked at the calendar of 10 days following, and is there, if we went to the 11th, that would clearly be further out from that. It would be, another 10 days past, the new year. And then we get into the report cards and all those other kinds of things and the end of term. So that was our conversation.
Okay, that does help me. So I want to go backward through the options. Option 3, to me, if DPH follows with their plans and in hopes that that they're going to turn the TK through 2 into the TK through 6 waivers and change at least 12-to-1 to 14-to-1, we're already looking at the end of January, maybe the beginning of February. Option 3 seems to me that we could be bringing students back after DPH has already allowed us everything we need to not disrupt students, parents, and teachers' lives more than COVID already is. Option 2 seems extremely disruptive to everybody. And thank you, Dr. Crumpy, for pointing out all of those disruptions from, changing teachers, missing out on not being with that teacher when your report grade reports come out, not being able to meet with your teacher. There's just so many aspects that are not, does not seem like good for the benefit of the child or the parent, and getting feedback from the teacher. And so then my question becomes, can we make option 1 work? I'm curious if we could delay because it's my understanding that January 4th is when local districts are going to be bringing back TK and K, at least some local districts, and we already have our TK and K back. And then a local district may be bringing their first graders back on, what is that, the 14th? No, what is
The 11th.
The 11th, on January 11th, that if we pass that critical period, because even the county's talking about changing the 14-day to the 10-day wait. We know that most cases emerge in the 3 to 5 day range. Could we get most of the people who would develop symptoms to already be showing it if we even gave a 7-day wait? Because then I'm thinking that 2 weeks later, January 25th is the end of January, and DPH may have already changed 14 to 1. And if not, the following week is February 1st. In the 2 to 3 week, separation, it's possible that it may just all fit naturally, and we may not have to disrupt any lives more than coming back disrupts lives. So I'm thinking that I'd like to ask if you would consider that as a means of not waiting so long as option 3, but modifying option 1 just a teeny tiny bit to be able to jimmy it to be less disruptive and align with what DPH is currently telling us they're expecting to happen.
Well, with option 1 is we can bring them back when we get that clearance, right, from the Department of Public Health. That is just with that 14 to 1 is really the critical number that causes some disruption in scheduling and additional teachers and those kinds of things. So, we also have another board meeting on the 19th of January. I'm not sure that DPH is going to make a call on that change prior to the next meeting. But if the board tonight says, as soon as it gets to 14, let's start the clock and let's get moving on that, we'll be ready to go. We're ready to go now. It's just a matter of having that number. We've got, we've demonstrated that we've brought kids back safely, and our educational professionals are doing everything that they can to make sure that happens.
Yeah, judging by what we're seeing on social media and hearing, I expect a lot of families to be mixing households. And so I share Mrs. Atkinson's concerns at an acceleration and wide community spread in Torrance, that 7-day delay, I think might be a good option. The other piece is you started talking about middle schools and 6th grade return. Just so you know, that raises a lot of concerns in my mind. I can't wait to see the school plans, what the community positivity rates are then, because my main concern is if numbers are not reducing at that time. Right now we have stable cohorts at the elementary level. When we start mixing periods, we now have 6 unstable cohorts mixing with others, and a chain reaction that concerns me as maybe being too much risk. So I'd like to hear more about those plans before we go full head into applying for waivers and just thrusting forward. So please make sure to bring that back to us.
Sure, absolutely. And we're just, I know Dr. Egan's just starting to work with middle school principals to kind of wrap their heads around this and what would it look like if we were to do that. So yes, we would certainly bring back a formal plan, at the January meeting if possible, but if not, we've got other meetings early February.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Great. Vice President James Hahn.
Thank you, President Liu. So I just want to give you my take on this. So I visited 15 out of the 18 elementary schools this past week to see the TK and the kindergarten kids back. And so I just want to make a few comments about what I observed. The very first comment is, I want to applaud all the teachers as well as the staff, the administration, for their amazing work in making this possible. It was a delight to see the kids back on campus. And understand, everyone did it different. Every school is radically different. Some schools had the plexiglass. Some classes had yoga mats. They didn't have desks. Every school did it radically different. You know what? And it was wonderful because at the end of the day, the kids were thrilled. And it was wonderful to see the kids back on campus, to see the teachers. They did an exceptional job. And so I want everyone to know that, man, you would be very impressed and very proud of our district and the way that they functioned and the way they handled bringing back these students. Like Dr. Stowe said from the very beginning, from the janitors, the custodians. I've seen so many custodians and janitors like I've never seen on a campus, working, spraying down while I'm having conversations. It was wonderful. To the bus drivers, to see multiple gates for different entrances for the kindergarten classes. I saw the whole shebang and it was absolutely well done. And I can only applaud all of the teachers. Indeed, I was very, very impressed. It was funny, even one school, they even split the playground in half, right? So one cohort will use half of it and the next day they will switch. They thought of everything you can imaginably think of, right? How they're gonna line up to get into the gate, how they're gonna line up to get into the class. They had color codes, red, blue. It was absolutely an amazing sight to see. So great job that everyone has done. The other thing that I want to bring up here is that I would like to maybe present a fourth option that I would like maybe you to consider. And the fourth option is that we allow each school to make that decision about whether or not they can bring back second grade based upon the cohort size. So my conversations, again, I went to 15 out of the 18 elementary schools. So some of the schools said, I specifically asked, are you ready to bring back second grade, even if we were to have the cohort size at 12? Some schools have already indicated that they are ready to bring it back, even though they were at 12. Some schools said, absolutely not. We cannot get open up without having 14. Just we don't have the staff, we don't have the people. So there was divided response regarding that. An additional issue that I maybe want to raise here too is, so on every school that I visited, I asked the principals how many kids switched from blended to distance, just so that I would have a number of understanding of maybe percentage wise and what is that change. The average that I experienced, I could be wrong, maybe Dr. Crumpy knows this, but on each campus, it seemed to be the number, the most seemed to be 10 that would move from blended to back to distance, right? That was about the most. On average, I would say it was about 6. And then you would have maybe 1 or maybe 2 that moved from distance to blended. So the trend was obviously parents did not feel safe, and that's why they moved their kids from so blended to distance. So that number that we originally slided showed, I'm not sure that that's going to be an accurate number because you're going to see a lot of transition when we make this decision to bring back second grade. Some parents might say, you know what, forget it. We can't do it. So they may want to go distance. So those numbers might be a little bit different as well. So because of it, I felt like maybe that if we would be able to say, if the schools that want to and feel like they're able to open up their schools based upon the smaller cohort size, then would that be an option? I don't know. I'm something that I just thought of while we're having this discussion right now. But it appears to me, though, the majority of the schools felt like 14 was that magic number. And so my opinion is to have that option 1, where we wait until DPH has it up to 14, and then that as soon as that we are able, that we will bring those students back based upon once LA County DPH says that we can get back to 14. The other comment is I want to applaud you guys also with that the dashboard. Absolutely wonderful. The response has been fantastic. The transparency is wonderful. And I think that also help us, when, with all the concerns that we have about transmission and outdoor transmission, that we show them that, hey, we have everything being recorded. We're not trying to hide anything. This is the reality of what is going on. And what we have shown so far and what I've witnessed is that the protocols have been working. It has been amazing to see, every campus that I visited, that they shared with me about their protocol. They shared me about what they had. Today, I visited a school that said, I think we had the very first COVID positive student in our campus, and how they handle the situation. And the protocols are absolutely wonderful. And so I feel we have supreme confidence in our administration and our teachers to bring back our second grade kids when we are able to open up the cohort size to 14. But is it a possibility, though, to be able to say that we leave it to the individual schools, whether or not they're ready to bring back second grade with a cohort size of 12 or 14? Is that a possibility?
I would say no. I think we've done all of this work unified. Certainly, we could have Dr. Kim, crunch some numbers and look at schools that might be, at a place where they have cohorts less than 12. I don't know that there are any, but we can certainly look at it. But just from how we've approached this with the task force over the summer and rolling things out and just been really clear that we're going to do this together, if there was a school or two that the numbers worked, that might just create more confusion in the community when people say, hey, why is that school open and this one's not? I believe that would put the principals in the middle of something that we don't want them to be in.
But at the same time, our schools have radically different communities as well. That's another thing that I observed when I visited the campuses. So one thing about Torrance Unified, we're very diverse, and each area is very different. When I visited the South and West schools, it was like 85, 90% want to come back. When I go visit the North Side and more central schools, it's more like 60%. The diversity is radically different. And I think the needs are radically different as well. And so is it possible for us to allow a little bit more autonomy? Because obviously we are going to be unified. It's just that some schools can have the staffing issues that they're able. And so some schools just right now are not ready to do so in that manner, in that way. So I just thought it might be nice to have a little bit of flexibility as long as we are all on the same page that we're going to be back to students sooner than later.
That is a conversation we could have with the principals just to kind of get their sense of it for sure.
And Dr. Stowe and Mr. Hahn, I just wanted to clarify, on the earlier slide, 66% of our classes are over. It's not uniform by school site. So I could have 3 second grade blended learnings at a given school, and 2 of them are going to be over and 1 might make the cohort. So I don't know that we have one school that if they wanted to, that actually all 3 of their second grades or all 2 of their second grades. I think we're going to find that it's a classroom here and a classroom here. So I think it actually would allow for a class at a school to open and then a class at a school to not open. We can put together the numbers and get that to you. But I think that's what we're going to find more often, is that it would be a rarity that every single second grade at a given school would be at a 12 in the AM and a 12 in the PM.
I see Dr. Gerson's hand is up. Feel free to speak.
Thank you. I wanted to address the handling schools differently across the district. Of course, Mr. Hahn is correct. Quadrants are different, schools are different, every community is different. And we have to look at the transient population within and without the city and understand the mobility. For example, a lot of times we will see the South and the West Side, a lot of open enrollment from within the district. and the East and the North, sometimes we'll see higher degrees of out of district permits coming into the district. So we can't just assume that health is the #1 issue why some are not choosing to come back. Transportation is, maybe an issue. There are other factors that we do need to consider. Coming up through the teacher ranks, one of the things that frustrated me as a teacher is times when it was said this is a school decision, when we desperately wanted it to be a district decision, a unified decision. During this time of health uncertainty, being unified, I think, creates more of a sense of comfort and safety when we are all doing the same thing, all following the same rules. I also am concerned about issues of equity, that if we don't hold the same standard to all schools, then some of our more needy populations might fall out of getting that instruction. So we'll have, for example, wealthier communities who are very verbal right now and want their children back. They will be receiving that benefit, where others who need it may not have the same voice or the same, they may not get the same services. So I'm also concerned about it from an equity standpoint. So I'd like to encourage the district to try and stay unified during this time.
Ms. Park?
Yes, I had a question about how up to date the numbers in the slide were. So I know that the parents and families were polled about a month ago, I believe, based on what Ms. Atkinson was talking about, and have there been ample enough opportunities to switch that these numbers that are reflected in the slide are accurate, or should we do another reassessment of where families are now? And if there seems to be more discomfort and the numbers are lower and there is more of a desire to switch to distance from some families, could we push that timeline up if we can get cohort sizes of 12 without the disruptions of having students have to, like 75 students remain in distance and things like that?
So good question. When we polled our families, and we reiterated, over and over again, and things change, is that we weren't going to allow this back and forth, that we would allow it as long as there was space. So many of our families knew that they had to make that decision knowing it might be permanent. And so, they made that painstaking decision. And so, that being said, to go from, we've got the only reason that we polled our TKK1 families is because we could not fit those kids into the 12:2 ratio. It is 12:2, by the way, or 14:2. There's 2 adults that are allowed. And so we needed their help. And we did at that time, especially as the coming back from Thanksgiving and then the holidays, a lot of them indicated they just weren't ready yet, but were wanted a little bit more time, to come back. It's hugely disruptive, even the longer of the year that we go, to resort. We had teachers that we were able to pull from existing jobs that they were doing on intervention. Our response to intervention, specialists are the ones that kind of came to the rescue temporarily for the TKK1 instruction. So we had teachers that were already trained. They know our distance learning platforms. They know our system. We don't have any more teachers. So for anything that we have to do to reshuffle, we would have to, we don't want to reshuffle because that would give everybody a new teacher, and that's not helping that engagement and connection. So we would have to hire new people who aren't trained and don't know our platform or don't know, where we are curricularly. It's a stressful thing for a new teacher to come in. So we would have to, if we were to do that and resort, we would have to hire about 4 new teachers for every grade level. So budget wise, there's an extra cost, but also personnel wise and getting them hired. So our plan, that's why one of the first option was when we go to 14-1, we fit them all. And I believe in Dr. Kim. So when you said the numbers accurate, they're accurate as we put this together this week. So they're as current as we know it. We do know that there are, and Dr. Kim, correct me, but I think there were 24, 25 open distance learning spaces across our schools for 2nd grade. So of the approximate 75, students that, well, I shouldn't say that, but so there is room right now for 75 or for 25 families to not feel comfortable. And if we were to return 2nd grade, whenever the cohort would change to 14, and they would still be able to switch, which kind of keeps with what we told them is, there's room that then you can move into that space.
So you're close, Dr. Crumpy. It's 18 spots in distance learning 2nd grade right now.
Okay. Thank you.
So that wouldn't mitigate any of the disruptions in option 2, regardless. So we're kind of stuck with the 14-2. Okay, got it.
Right. Yeah, and remember the classes were built at 16 because that was the number over the summer, and then went to 14. And so we're really trying to squeeze with 25% less capacity the classes that we built in options 2 and 3. So I know the board wants to talk. We want them to talk more about these 3 options, but also Dr. Gerson, I believe you asked kind of a question that I didn't respond to. I think if that's where you were going with maybe looking at January 11th for 1st grade instead of January 4th, did you ask that question or did I?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so I think if that would be the will of the board, we certainly are flexible and could do something like that. But I think that's we would want certainly board consensus on something, on moving that date.
I think it just, I would still like the idea that we stick with the 4th, because obviously that was the plan that we already assessed, we already discussed with the teacher. I don't think a week's going to make that much of a difference regarding the numbers regardless. I think that it's going to be within the same scope. That's what we're seeing right now. And so I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference since we already made that announcement. Just going back on that option again, the reason why I brought that option is because we as a district have always said that we as South Bay are different than the rest of LA County. We're not like everyone else in LA County. And they talked about transmission, how people still come into our city. And because of it, that's why we can't open up things because other people come into our city, whatever. But we always said we're safer than everyone else. And so therefore we should be allowed to open up. That was one of the reasons why I thought about the whole idea of certain areas within our district. They could have the same argument. You guys argue that we as South Bay are different than the rest of LA County. So we should be able to open up. That's been our argument all along. And so my thing in the same way is that if schools are able, like we said, we were able as a district to open up safely. If they were able to open up safely with this cohort size of 12, I just don't see why we would say no, just because that they were just able in that way, in that manner. And again, the areas that I've noticed that have more concerns, obviously, is that they're the ones who are also more cautious, and so they're really hesitant to bring back their students, and so again, that's why I'm wondering whether or not it is. I'll be kind of curious to see, how the elementary principals would argue. Yes, we're ready. No, we're not ready. Because again, I've heard both. When I visited these schools. Again, majority we're not ready to open up. I don't think they can open up with under 12, like Dr. Crumpy was mentioning. It would require for us to hire more teachers at that point. But I think some schools are able. And so that's why I just thought it was kind of a curiosity thing. But I think to stick with our original 3 options, I think that option 1 is the most viable. We already set the date out for January 1st. I think that we should also be able to wait until we have LEDPH open up to 14 before we make the decision to bring back 2nd grade. And as soon as we can bring back 2nd grade after that announcement, I think we should be ready to go. And same that goes with 3rd through 5th. I think as soon as they allow 3rd through 5th to go, I think we should have. And I wouldn't be surprised if LEDPH, knowing them and watching them, as soon as they make that announcement to 14, I think they're going to make the announcement to open up to 3rd to 5th. It would not surprise me one bit if they were to do that. So that's why I think that we have to prepare ourselves to for that as well. So my thing is, as soon as LEDPH gives permission to both, we get moving on it at that point.
And they did say that. Dr. Ferrer said that in multiple meetings that they were going to, I think she said concurrently or within a very close period of time, when they go to 14, they're going to also align with the state on the numbers for, or on the waiver, allowing the waiver for 3 through 6. So we'll have to see when that happens. But as to Mr. Han, the question about them doing, different schools opening at different times, we'll look at it to see, do we even have any schools that are in that? And Dr. Kim will have conversation with the principals. But again, I would think that the great majority of them do not have cohorts of 12 or less in all of their grades, like Dr. Crumpy mentioned. We've been looking at these cohort sizes and different classes for a month or so now to see how we can make this work at K2. So, but we'll have that conversation with them tomorrow and get their feedback. But I would want to make sure that we support our principals and not put them in a situation that that brings undue stress on or strain on them, or anyone at particular sites that maybe don't open when everybody else does. So that's just a concern I have with doing something at a different time.
Currently, there are 2 suggestions on the table. One is about 1st graders, perhaps bring them back later instead of our previously decided January 4th. The second suggestion is for 2nd graders to, for option 1 for 2nd graders, as Vice President Han have said. Does anybody feel strongly one way or another? Let's go with the grades first. Let's go with 1st grade and then move up to 2nd, 3rd, and 3 to 5. Ms. Park?
Just to clarify one second, President Liu, we're not really asking for clarification on 3 through 5th. We just put that on there as a slide of these are things that we're working on and planning. So really the question is which of the options for 2nd grade? I think I heard a majority of the board say that option 1, we need to wait till the cohorts of 14. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And then the other question was what Dr. Gerson brought up is maybe a consideration of the board to look at January 4th as for 1st grade. Do we continue moving on that date, or do we look at something else?
Okay, then let's go ahead and deal with the first issue at hand that's listed in the agenda and in the presentation. For 2nd grade, if no one else want to put any input, this is how I feel. I would like to have our 2nd graders return to school campuses as soon as possible, but with minimum detriment to their studies. I understand that sending them in before the county increases the cohort size to 14 would disrupt many students, as Dr. Crumpy has said. I do not like the idea of having students go switch, like ping-ponging between teachers. If we put them in right now, they will have 12 in a cohort, and So the extra 75 students or so will have to change teachers. And then later on, if the county allows the cohort to be 14, then we bring these students back to their original teacher or so, I imagine. I think that's just way too confusing, especially for such young kids that we're talking about, second graders. They need to have trust and security more in their schooling, not be all confused left and right. So the current county order of only having 12 to a cohort seems a bit arbitrary to me. Especially for us here in the South Bay, we have been having much lower numbers than the rest of the county. Other areas of county, I understand, are unfortunately have much higher numbers and much higher infection rates. What I want to do is for us as a board, with the consensus of the board, to write a very strong letter to LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn, who represents us here in this district, and also another letter directly to the LA County Department of Public Health, demanding that they follow the state's allowance of having 14 students in a cohort. And if they don't change the cohorts soon enough, I think that we should have a backup plan. So we option 1 and then have the letter. And in case they do not increase the number by, say, middle of January, we go ahead and proceed in preparing the students, the second grade students, to come back as soon as possible. I don't believe that we can wait much longer. As we all know, the students right now are losing a lot by not being able to be in their classrooms, especially for these young children. So that's my proposal. So there are a few proposals on the table. How do you guys all feel?
I would just change the response for the waiting for the deadline for a response from changes from DPH from mid-January to late January, because if that is the messaging that's been coming, I feel like mid-January might be too early for us to know where they're going to land. And then that would align with option 3 as well of bringing back students February in February 9th. So that would be my only suggestion.
Okay. Does anybody feel that way also? I am fine with moving on with option 3, but I do want a deadline to, to have a backup plan in case the Department of Public Health doesn't grant the waiver, the number of cohorts soon enough.
No, I'm with you, Betty. I think option 1, as soon as we can. I think that regardless, I think that again, the feeling I have with LADPH is that they're going to make that decision earlier than later in January. So my thing is, as soon as they make that announcement, we're still going to give our people a couple of weeks anyways. But I think that we can bring back the second graders by January 21st. I think that if they make the announcement on January 11th, that will give us 10 days. January 21st, we can bring back our second graders. That's my hope. That's what I think will happen. I think that they will make the announcement by January 11th, give us 10 days to bring back January 21st. I think February 9th is way too late because again, that's going to delay everything else. If we open February 9th for second graders, then you're going to talk about late February for 3rd, 4th, 5th by the time we're March. And I think that just pushes everything way too far. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I don't think the suggestion was to wait until February 9th, regardless. It was that if not option 1, if DPH does not follow through and does not change the cohort size to 14 by late January, then option 3.
The last thing that I know that we've all heard the same thing from Dr. Ferrer and talking about the January rolling. But I'm still holding on that one of the last meetings I heard from her, she still threw out the 10 per 100,000 number as an internal metric that does exist. And she never said that they're never following that metric anymore. So I think that there's a possibility that, that if if we see cases dropping, then yes. If we don't see cases dropping toward that internal metric, that, you know, until she clarifies whether that's still an internal goal or not, they may change course on us as far as that end of January date. And that's why I was saying maybe February 1st, because it may roll into February. So with community spread increasing so fast, I don't know. I have a feeling that there's the possibility that LADPH may change course on us in January if numbers continue to go the way they are.
Dr. Mohammed?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, it is so good to be part of a conversation when we're talking about kids returning back. It feels good, and it's just very hopeful. So you know, I like that. But you know, I do believe that you know, as long as we can bring our students back with the least amount of disruptions, I think that is probably the proper course to take. So with the you know, DPH, if they can set and deliver on the 14, I think that just makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, you know, the discussions in November that I saw and the discussions that we're having now, I think the context in terms, it has changed a little bit in terms of the COVID cases. So I want to make sure we don't lose sight in terms of our safety. I'm glad to know that protocols are working really well. I just want to make sure that we don't relax on them and that, you know, we're continuing to follow them with rigor and with, you know, close eye. And if additional PPE is needed, we do it and we keep our staff safe because they're seriously on the front lines, our teachers and our classified folks that are cleaning and sanitizing and you know, teaching. So I want to make sure that, you know, we don't lose sight on that, because as we're bringing more kids back, obviously we're bringing more staff back. There'll be more traction and traffic. And so I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight on that. But nevertheless, I think, you know, the least disruption is good. And the fact that, you know, we're talking about kids coming back, I think it's so hopeful. And I'm so glad to be part of this conversation. So thank you so much. Those are my thoughts.
So Dr. Liu, so basically what I'm hearing though is, so option 1, and if we don't get to by February 9th, then we go to option 3. Is that what I'm hearing?
So how about I agree with you, Mr. Han. So, you know, I'm hearing option 1, we have another board meeting on the 19th. We'll monitor it, obviously, after the beginning of the new year, bring it back for the board for discussion to see where we are at that point in time. If it doesn't look like, you know, DPH might take action on the horizon, then maybe we at that point in time, we have this further discussion, because it's over a month from now, right? I mean, it's 5 weeks. And so there's a lot of time between now and then for us to be able to gather information, bring that back to the board.
So it sounds to me like, you know, we're all good with option 1. We do not like all the disruption for everybody proposed in option 2. The way I feel about it is, and I just don't want to wait forever in case the Department of Public Health does not increase their cohort size. I just want to have a specific date for them to go back as a backup plan. So it's something like option 3, if the consensus of the board is to wait till after the next board meeting and then go and see if the department has increased the number of cohort students, that would be fine with me. But I just wanted you guys all to know that we need to have a backup plan in case they do not increase the number soon.
So President Liu, I love your idea of writing the letter, by the way. Good idea.
Great, thank you. How do other people feel about it? We need consensus if we were to do it.
I feel like Supervisor Han doesn't necessarily pay attention to us sometimes, so I am thoroughly supportive of writing a letter to her, although she ignored our last one completely. I think in the case of public health, especially with how open and available Dr. Ferrer has been with us, I think a conversation with her is much more effective than a letter to her, because she is so receptive of taking in input. Even the Q&As at the end, you hear her, she's like, I'm here to answer questions, but I'm also here to take your input. I think that if we just asked her, I think that would go further than necessarily writing a strongly worded letter with all of our signatures.
So I'm hearing if Dr. Mohammed, that's a thumbs up I see. So for what, the phone call or?
Sorry, I support the letter, and having conversation, just like Dr. Gerson said, is also a good idea.
I agree with you, Dr. Mohammed. I do think that we can do both, have a letter and to make a phone call. We can't have a group phone call with them because of the Brown Act. It will be a violation. I can suggest for us to call them individually, or also encourage all the viewers or parents of TUSD elementary kids, if they feel the same way, they can also write letters or call her as well. I think it would help to have at least a letter over to Supervisor Han's office, along with directly to DPH, to Dr. Farrer, because she is Dr. Farrer's boss. So we might want to get to the boss first. How does everyone feel about it? Any more input from you guys?
President Liu, we're happy to help draft the letter that the board would then sign. We'd probably have to insert electronic signatures in lieu of having to run around this week and get them. I'm assuming you probably would want it out before the holidays, and so any details as to specific numbers of cohorts and those kinds of things will help with any of the details that we can to support the message that we want to get across.
That sounds great. Thank you very much, Dr. Stowe. So moving on to item number 15.6.
Well, before we do that, the January 4th thing is still hanging out there. So
oh yes, the first grader.
Is that a conversation that the board wants to have, or to provide a different direction on that, or do we continue to move forward with the January 4th date for bringing our first graders back?
I would like to stick with the date that we stuck all along, January 4th.
I would as well stick with January 4th. And the reasoning behind that would be that the evidence showing that the transmission rate amongst our younger students seems to be lower, and the evidence that our schools and our staff and students are doing well in terms of following protocols. So echoing what Dr. Mohammed said, given that those factors remain the same, that is why I would like to stick with January 4th.
Dr. Mohammed?
I concur with Ms. Park. I think the fourth is fine with me, but just want to stress the importance of following protocols and guidelines, and just making sure that as long as we do the things we need to do, we can really help things out on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think it's very important that we all get reminded once in a while to follow the safety protocols very strictly. And Ms. Park, you said exactly how I feel. At the last board meeting, I also stated that young children, the science research shows that young children, such as first graders that we're talking about right now, do not transmit COVID-19 as the adult counterparts do. And that was why I had decided to go ahead and allow our young kids to go back to school. Hearing from everyone.
Mrs. Liu, may I add one more thing?
Of course, Dr. Gerson.
I would like to remind everyone that last week DPH enacted a new rule that if there are 3 positive cases that can be epidemiologically linked within a 14-day period, they will now close the school automatically for a 14-day deep cleaning and cooling off period. And just so you know that transmissions across the county, adults are, bringing our 3-to-1 COVID cases to children. So as we bring more adults onto campus, just know that if DPH links it or not, because we've also seen evidence that linking thing doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually going to link them. They, in some cases, are assuming that they're linked. So if there are 3 cases, we may see schools in the South Bay start to get closed, which could also shake public confidence in schools, even though it's, it's a pod, or it's just one. It could be a large family or a sports pod or just 3 adults. So just so that we have that in our mind, that we may see school closures as we bring more people back on, just because of the number of cases in our community. We know that there are going to be cases on our school campuses. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us of that too, and informing us again. I do believe that our district have been strictly following all the safety protocols and would have shut down if there are 3 or more cases. That's
Quick question.
Yeah. I was going to say Dr. Han. Yes, Vice President, strike that. Vice President Han.
Dr. Stowe, quick question on the dashboard for the COVID cases on our website. Is that going to be updated during winter break as well, like 18th to 25th, so that the first, or is it going to be just updated like right before school starts again? If we could keep it updated somehow during, because it shouldn't change during winter break. I'm just saying, are we going to update it?
It should not. Dr. Liberati, you've been working on that. Is that something that's been coming up as far as a conversation over winter break?
The goal is to maintain the positive cases on the dashboard and to remove those that are cleared to return. So that will most likely happen during the winter break, at least hopefully the clearing of folks that have been allowed to return to work by their doctors. And the hope, along with you, I would hope that we don't have any additional cases. But having said that, we will have folks with symptoms that then get tested and return, and we'll try to update that as we go.
Or what if teachers get it during winter break? Like they just get it and they let us know. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, will we update that before they come back? Let's say someone tests on 31st. They just, oh, I don't feel good. They get tested. And, hey, Dr. Liberati, just want to send you an email. I got tested positive. Are we going to update those? That's what I'm asking, like teacher staff, not kids pretty much, because no one should be on campus, but the teachers or janitors or classified, certified, staff.
So a couple of things, depending on when they're tested. Sometimes we hear that if you're tested within the first couple of days, it'll come back negative. Doctor want you to go back after 4 or 5 days, even if they're doing the PCR test. So that may take us into the winter break before we hear about that. Also know, you mentioned the 31st, what we're trying to report on the dashboard are positive cases on the campus. So if someone contracts COVID-19 away from campus, we're not necessarily going to report that on the dashboard if it was away from campus because they're not positive cases on the campus. However, we have been very careful with reporting cases to DPH. So we will follow DPH protocols. We'll contact DPH as our nurses have been. If we have cases during that period of time, we'll certainly follow DPH direction. But the objective of the dashboard is to report cases that are positive on the campus.
Okay, great. Dr. Stowe, do you have enough to go on?
Yes, thank you very much.
Idea for how we are.
I appreciate the conversation.
Okay. And just to clarify, on this item, we do not need a motion to approve or so. All right, then we can now go on to item number 15.6, approval to adopt resolution number AS 0520/21 of the Board of Education of the Torrance Unified School District relating to information made available to the public in the form of a statutory school facilities fee, including alternative school facilities fee. otherwise known as reportable fees, report for fiscal year 2019-2020. And findings herein in compliance with Government Code Section 66006 and Section 66001. Do we have a motion? Or do we can open up for discussion?
This is the public hearing that you had earlier, so there was no public comment at that point in time. So you can do a motion second, and unless board members have questions.
That's great. Any questions, or does anyone want to make a motion on this for an approval?
I move to approve.
Great, thank you. Is there a second? I'll second it. Or Dr. Mohammed, you can second it, actually. I just saw your hand raised. So we have a motion and a second. Let's see. And all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Seeing any against the approval of this resolution? Okay, seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. Moving on now to item number 16, consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent calendar, that is general functions consent through administrative service bond consent, are considered to be routine and will be enacted with one vote. There is no discussion of consent calendar items unless members of the governing board, public, or staff request that specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Does anybody wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain the motion.
Hold on, can I pull one? I'm just looking at the agenda item. If I can pull one item. Yeah, let me just pull number 17.7. Just quick question about that.
Sure.
I move that we approve the entire consent agenda except 17.7.
That would be from item number 17 to 23. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, seeing none, the motion passes for all the consent agenda items from 17 to 23, with the exception of 17.7.
So Dr. Stowe, quick question about that. And so are we getting paid for that?
So
this is fantastic, by the way. I think this is absolutely wonderful. So
well, don't speak too soon, because I think because Dr. Butler and I had a meeting with Dr. Giulio and Paula Takamini from adult school today, and if my recollection serves me correctly, Dr. Butler, this is not a program that MOG is going to be continuing. Was that correct?
Unfortunately, that is correct. This is to finish the program that we had, and there's no intent on their end to continue it, unfortunately.
Dish. Okay, that's good to know, because I was trying to understand what that was. According to the agenda item,
but what we have had, this is the contract with MOG for that works with our adult ed and our students who are in their English language development program for adult students at MOG. So we provide the instruction for MOG employees. MOG is they make aircraft actuators and other kinds of parts for military and commercial aircraft over here. They're actually adopt a school partner of Hull Middle School. That's why I know, because I was principal there. It's a great facility over off of Western. But yeah, so this item is on here to be able to pay for the cost of the teachers for the current time, but it's not a program that's going to be continuing. I didn't catch the date when it's ending, but if it hasn't already, it's going to at the end of the year.
okay, so this agenda item is a little confusing then, because the way it reads is that to enter a contract. And so it doesn't seem like we're entering a contract. Like if you look at the agenda item, right, the way it reads is kind of, it says approval for Torrance and Adult School and move to enter into a contract for TAS to provide English language development for MOOCs adult students. This
So
is not what you're telling me. This is not a right board item. So that's why I don't feel confident approving this thing. I just don't know. Is that right? Is that language right on that agenda item?
Yes, the language is right. We have had an agreement with Moog in the past. We are
Okay.
continuing with them only for this particular contract, and then that program ends.
Oh, I see. Okay. And when does that contract end?
I believe it's June 30th, but I share the same hazy recollection that Dr. Stowe does of the exact date.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I was just kind of confused about this. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was great. I was actually confused about that too. I thought it was a brand new contract that we were going into. All right, we approved the.
You need a
consent-
motion in a second and then approval of it.
Ah,
I move that we approve agenda item 17.7.
I second that motion.
thank you. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the motion passes for item number 17.7. Okay, item number 24 is entitled Information, where there's the board calendar. And 24.2 is a certification of results of the Torrance Unified School District election consolidated with the general election of November 3rd, 2020. These are just the official result, and if anybody it's for information value. So if anyone wants to take a look at that letter, it is attached to the agenda. Item number 25, comments from members of the Board of Education. First of all, 25.1, report from the board representative to Southern California Regional Occupational Center, SCROC, Southern California ROC. Mr. Han?
So we have our board meeting this week. So we'll be obviously having new members as well on our board. And we are looking to hire a marketing agency to help promote SoCal ROC. And so that's where we are at right now. That's pretty much it. Nothing much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Han. Now, just regular orals. Are there any oral comments unrelated to any of these subjects that anybody want to speak of? I will start, or maybe I'm the only one, but I just want to wish everyone happy holidays, because we won't be able to see you until next year. And please be safe out there.
If I can,
Mr. Han.
So I also want to wish everyone a happy holidays as well as a wonderful new year. But I also want to express again my gratitude to our teachers. And so obviously by visiting schools, just seeing the teachers there, I realized once again that there are frontline workers. And I felt like, as a community, it would be great if we could do whatever we can to show our appreciation for our teachers. And so just today, I asked Chick-fil-A if they would be able to make a donation so that maybe we could try to get at least one chicken sandwich for every teacher in our district, as a small gesture. The Del Amo one, the one off of Hawthorne, right across from the mall, donated 250 cards. So I want to personally thank Mr. Revelo, I think that's how you say his last name, who is the owner of the Chick-fil-A right there off of Hawthorne across the mall, for coming through and giving us that donation for 250 cards that we can distribute. But he also got me in contact with the other 3 Chick-fil-A's in our area. And so I emailed them as well, and I'm hearing for a response. But again, I want to thank Chick-fil-A just for the generosity, especially Mr. Revelo. Thank you so much. And again, maybe as a community that we can figure out ways that we can show our appreciation for all of our teachers and our administration during this time. And so thank you from my heart, at least, for all our admin, teachers, janitors, custodians, everyone that's on our schools, even those who are distance learning teachers, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful, blessed holiday.
Great, thank you, Mr. Han. I absolutely concur. The teachers are the frontline workers, and they are very important to all of us. Dr. Gerson, would you like to speak?
Yes, ma'am. So first, I'd like to give a CSBA Delegate Assembly report. So every year, the California School Boards Association does an annual Education Conference. All of us attended it for 2 days. Well, the 2 days prior are responsibilities of the Delegate Assembly. I want to thank the board for nominating me so that I could become, move to this elected position and represent Torrance Unified for at the CSBA level. So the first thing to inform you about is that after 41 years of being a school board member, and I think he said 12 as director of Region 24, our region, Donald LaPlante has retired. And in his place, we have elected Leighton Anderson as the Region 24 director. And we also had to vote for 2 directors at large. First director at large Hispanic, we elected Joaquin Rivera, and director at large for Asian Pacific Islander, Amy Koo. So that's my CSBA Delegate Assembly report for you. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Park and Dr. Mohammed to the board. It was a pleasure beginning to get to know you. I'm very excited with your energy and ideas that I'm looking forward to many years of us working together to advance TUSD's mission and vision and create some new vision for our community. So welcome. I'm very excited to work with you. I also wanted, as we're entering, or we're in the midst of, season of light and giving, season of family and community. COVID-19 is, such a downer. So, just within our own family, we started doing Friday night dinners via Zoom with the people who we normally meet, but it allowed us to add in family members from other states. So we now have a multi-state family dinner many Fridays. So there's some silver lining for COVID, and there's some hope for people who can't be mixing households during the season that we spend together. So first to our Jewish community, tonight is the 5th night of Hanukkah. And so I want to wish them a happy Hanukkah, Chag Sameach. Before we meet again, of course, Christmas will be around. So I want to wish our community a very merry and joyous Christmas. And then the following day, Kwanzaa begins. And so I want to wish a happy Kwanzaa to those who celebrate. So Faraha Kwanzaa to those members of our community. So thank you. I hope all of you have a safe and healthy holiday, whatever you celebrate. And I look forward to seeing all of you in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gerson. And that was really good. You said quite a few things in different languages. That was pretty impressive. And in reference to the first item that you talked about, your CSBA report, I just want to let those who are listening who might not know what being a delegate means, each school district can nominate a person to run for to be a delegate. And our board here had nominated Dr. Gerson last year, I believe it was. And all the school districts within our region get to vote. He won the seat to represent our region. So just want to make sure everyone knows what a CSBA delegate is. Anybody else for any oral comments? Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you so much, President Liu. I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays and just best wishes for the upcoming year. I really am hopeful for 2021. I'm sure we all are, and look forward to seeing everyone in January. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now I feel peer pressured. I feel like I should.
No.
But no, I did want to thank everyone. I wanted to thank members of the board. Terry and Dawn, everyone has just been so generous in sharing their time and their knowledge and just affirmations and encouragements as well. And so I wanted to thank everyone, and the cabinet as well has been just incredibly helpful in getting us up to speed. And also it's just so great to be surrounded by people, such good people with great hearts who really love our students. And so I'm leaving quite inspired tonight, even though it's quite a long meeting. So hopefully everyone's able to get their rest, and happy holidays.
Thank you, Ms. Park. Yes, tonight is a longer meeting, but we have gone past 10:30 before. Uh-oh, did you know what you signed up for? In any case, okay, moving on to item 26, adjournment in memoriam of former Board of Education member and Personnel Commissioner, Dr. Owen Griffith, retired high school administrator, Lois A. Daniels, and Torrance High School teacher, Michelle Rodriguez. Is there a motion?
So
to
moved.
adjourn the meeting?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Okay,
Seeing
don't-
none, meeting
don't go
is
anywhere
adjourned.
yet. We're not
Oh,
done.
I am sorry. Dr. Stowe, would you like to say something?
Nope, that meeting is adjourned. I just wanted to get everyone before they logged off. We have another meeting.
Yes, the meeting.
Super short.
That's right. We have our next meeting.
It should be a quick one. Mr.
Yes,
Hahn, I
it
believe
should be
you
very fast.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. Hold on.
got the floor. Yeah.
Okay, so give me 1 second here.
No problem. Just for people who are confused out there, our TUSD board meeting has ended. Now we're moving on to the meeting for TUSD Public Facilities Corporation meeting. I'm sorry.
So I would like to call to order the TUSD Public Facilities Corporation meeting. And I would like to make a motion and present Mrs. Liu as president, Mr. Hahn as vice president, Dr. Stowe as secretary, and Dr. Butler as treasurer for the upcoming year.
I'll second.
No, you gotta make a motion first. Oh, I will make, I made the motion, sorry, right.
I second that Mrs. Liu be the president, that Mr. Hahn be the vice president, that Mr. Stowe be the secretary, and that, sorry, Dr. Stowe be the secretary, and Dr. Butler be the treasurer.
That's great. It is late, so totally understandable. All right, all in favor of that motion, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is passed. All right.
Can I move to adjourn the meeting now?
Sure, you can.
I second that.
All right, we are now finally over. Is that good with you, Dr. Stowe?
Wonderful.
We can
Thank
log
you so
off now?
much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Right,
for
say
everyone.
taco time.
Safe.
Good job, Betty. Good job, President.
Tacos.
Congratulations, Betty.
Tacos.
Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Good job.
Bye, everyone.
Have a
Happy
good
holidays.
night.
Good night.